The morning sun rises over the boundless expanse of Australia and Oceania, casting a golden light across lands that seem to hum with ancient power. The breeze carries whispers of stories that have traveled through generations, stories of creatures that are more than myth, but woven into the very fabric of the land. These lands are not just places, they are living, breathing entities where the earth itself feels alive, listening, watching, and remembering. The stark red of the Australian outback stretches endlessly, its silence broken by the rustle of the wind over the dry grass and the faint calls of unseen birds. This land holds secrets older than time, carved into the very rocks and whispered by the trees. The monolithic presence of Uluru rises like a sentinel in the distance, glowing with hues that shift with the day. This sacred heart of the land is said to pulse with the stories of the Dreamtime, a place where the spirits of the ancestors still walk. It is here that the rainbow serpent, the life-giving force of water and creation, is said to rest, winding its immense body through hidden rivers and beneath the earth. Far to the north, the lush rainforests of the Daintree hum with vibrant life. The air is thick and fragrant, alive with the buzz of insects and the distant roar of waterfalls. These forests are more than just home to creatures of flesh and blood, they house spirits and guardians. Quincan figures painted on the walls of caves seem to shift and dance when seen by firelight, their elongated limbs reaching out to tell tales of warning and reverence. Every step through the dense foliage feels as if unseen eyes are watching, ancient and wise. Across the turquoise waters of the Pacific, a different world unfolds. The islands of Polynesia rise like green jewels from the sea, fringed by beaches of soft sand and swaying palms. Here, the ocean is not a boundary but a lifeline, a vast and unending presence that connects islands and people. Tangaroa, the mighty god of the sea, watches over his domain with creatures both real and fantastical at his side. The waves whisper his name as they break upon the shore, and the salt in the air seems charged with his power. On the islands, the mountains stretch toward the heavens, their peaks often shrouded in mist. In these veils of cloud, the Moo, powerful dragon-like beings, are said to guard sacred waters and protect the people who honor them. Pools hidden in the depths of the valleys shimmer with an otherworldly light, and some say that to drink from them is to feel the presence of the Moo, their scales glistening just beneath the surface. In the volcanic heart of Hawaii, the land cracks and smolders, alive with Pele's fiery spirit. Her presence is not just felt but seen in the molten rivers of lava that carve new land from the ocean. The Menehune, tiny but tireless builders, are said to work under the cover of night, creating structures that defy explanation. Their handiwork is whispered of in quiet reverence, a reminder that even the smallest beings can wield great power. In the far south, New Zealand's jagged peaks and glacial fjords hold their own secrets. The land feels raw and untamed, and the spirits of the Maori people are strong here. The Tanawa, fierce guardians of rivers and lakes, are said to protect their people while punishing those who would do harm. Their forms, both monstrous and majestic, are etched into the land, their presence felt in every ripple of water and echoing call of the wind. The islands of Melanesia tell stories of the Ataro, creatures born of rainbows and sunlight, who tread the line between mischief and menace. The jungles thrum with life, and within them, shadows take shapes that shift and twist. The people know to tread carefully, for these lands are alive with spirits that protect what is sacred. Trees that seem ordinary in the daylight take on an eerie presence in the dusk, their gnarled branches twisting like claws. The ocean, ever present, binds these lands together. It teems with creatures both seen and unseen, from the sleek shadows of sharks to the tails of monstrous sea serpents that are said to rise from the depths. Sailors tell of nights when the sea glows with an eerie phosphorescence, as if some ancient being stirs beneath the waves. The vast blue horizon feels endless, its beauty hiding an unspoken menace. Every corner of Australia and Oceania pulses with a sense of the extraordinary. The winds that sweep across the desert, the waves that crash against volcanic cliffs, and the stillness of ancient forests carry the weight of countless tales. This land, wild and untamed, feels as if it exists just on the edge of the known, where the ordinary and the mythical blur into one. The fire crackled in the stillness of the night, its orange glow flickering against the faces of those gathered around. The elder's voice, rough with age yet steady, carried across the cool air like a song carried on the wind. In the beginning, he began, his tone low and measured. There was nothing but darkness and silence. Then, from the silence, the rainbow serpent awoke. The children leaned closer, their wide eyes reflecting the flames, their imaginations painting vivid images of a colossal serpent winding through the void. The elder's hand moved in slow arcs, as if tracing the rainbow serpent's journey across the barren land. It carved rivers where it slithered, he said, his voice trembling with the weight of generations, and where it rested, mountains rose. It was the breath of the rainbow serpent that brought life to this land. The animals, the people, the trees, all owe their existence to its song. Dreamtime stories like this one hold more than words. They are the heartbeats of the Aboriginal people. They are not told to entertain, but to guide, to teach, and to connect. Each tale weaves a thread through time, tying the living to the spirits of their ancestors and the land they walk upon. These stories are not just about gods and spirits, they are about survival, respect, and the fragile balance between humanity and nature. The Yuin people speak of Gulaga, the sacred mountain, as the mother who watches over them. To outsiders, it is just a peak shrouded in mist. But to the Yuin, every rock, tree, and shadow carries her essence. The elders tell of how Gulaga rose from the ocean, her body becoming the mountain, her arms forming the forests that stretch across the land. When her children wander too far or forget to honor her, the winds howl through the trees, a mournful reminder of her eternal presence. Thousands of miles away, across the vast ocean, the people of the Pacific Islands hold their own tales of creation. On a quiet night, under a sky so full of stars it feels like they might fall, an old woman hums a melody that seems older than time itself. Her voice rises and falls like the waves, and soon, words begin to form. Long ago, she says, there was only the endless sea. And from that sea, Tangaloa, the mighty god, reached down and brought forth the first land. The young ones sit at her feet, their faces tilted upward as if they can see Tangaloa himself in the heavens above. She tells them how he shaped the islands with his hands, sprinkling them across the ocean like pearls. She speaks of the first humans, born of earth and sea, molded by Tangaloa's will. The land is sacred, she says, her voice firm now. Every tree, every stone, it carries his mana, his power. To harm the land is to harm yourself. In Samoa, the legend of Titii and the theft of fire sparks to life in vivid detail. The flames in the hearth seem to leap higher as the storyteller describes Titi's daring climb to the heavens. He faced the wrath of Mafuii, the god of earthquakes, to steal the secret of fire and bring it to his people. The ground trembled, and the air burned as the two clashed, but Titi's courage did not falter. The storyteller pauses, letting the tension hang in the air, before revealing how Titii emerged victorious, his hands scorched but triumphant. The children cheer, their spirits lifted by the tale of a hero who defied the gods for the sake of his people. In the Maori lands of Aotearoa, creation is a story of separation and longing. Before the world as we know it, Ranginui, the Sky Father, and Papatuanuku, the Earth Mother, lay locked in a tight embrace, their love so strong that no light could reach their children. In the dark, the children whispered of freedom, their voices trembling with both fear and hope. It was Tane, the god of forests, who finally pushed his parents apart, letting the first rays of light shine upon the earth. The storyteller's voice softens, and the room falls silent. Even now, she says, when the rain falls, it is Ranginui weeping for Papatuanuku. And when the mist rises, it is her sigh, reaching for him. The listeners sit in awe, their hearts aching for the eternal love and loss of the Sky Father and Earth Mother. They begin to see the world around them not as ordinary, but as sacred, filled with the echoes of that primordial separation. Each story, whether it rises from the red sands of the outback or drifts across the waves of the Pacific, is alive. It shapes the way people see the world, turning mountains into mothers, rivers into veins, and the stars into ancestors watching from above. These are not just tales to be told, they are truths to be lived, reminders of the fragile, powerful connection between humans and the forces that created them. In these oral traditions, the past feels as close as a breath, and the world seems bigger, fuller, more alive than words can capture. The fisherman stood at the edge of the reef, the waves lapping gently at his ankles. He raised his hands to the horizon, muttering words as ancient as the tides themselves. His movements were deliberate, his voice steady, as though he were speaking not to the ocean but to something within it. Beneath the surface, shadows shifted and swayed, and the water seemed to ripple with a life of its own. He was calling upon the Tanawa, the guardian of these waters, to grant him safe passage and bountiful fish. To the untrained eye, it might seem like a simple ritual, but to him, it was everything. Without the Tanawa's blessing, no voyage could begin. Mythical creatures are not just characters in stories, they are woven into the rhythm of life. For the Maori of New Zealand, the Tanawa is both protector and predator, a creature of great respect and caution. Before constructing a bridge or a road, elders often consult the local Tanawa's domain, ensuring the creature is acknowledged and appeased. If ignored, it is said that the Tanawa will rise, causing misfortune or even disaster. In this relationship lies an understanding, a pact between humanity and the forces of nature. Far away in the vast expanse of the Pacific, a canoe slices through the ocean under the starlit sky. The navigator, seated at the helm, tilts his head upward, his eyes scanning the constellations with a reverence that borders on worship. Above him, the stars shimmer like a tapestry of ancient knowledge, and among them are the spirits of creatures long spoken of in hushed tones. To the Polynesians, the Moo, the great dragons of water and land, are not confined to myth. They guide, they protect, and sometimes, they warn. When the sea grows restless, when waves crash with an unusual fury, it is said that the Moo are stirring, reminding sailors of their place in the grand order of things. These creatures, whether guardians of the land or rulers of the sea, are not distant beings in the imagination. They are present, active, and deeply entwined with the spiritual lives of those who honor them. In Aboriginal Australia, the rainbow serpent is not merely a creator, it is a force that continues to govern water, fertility, and life itself. Its winding form is seen in the snaking rivers and its presence felt in the rhythm of the rains. When the land is parched and cracked, it is not uncommon for ceremonies to be held to awaken the serpent, to remind it of its duty to nurture the earth. Even in daily life, mythical creatures leave their mark. In the forests of Vanuatu, hunters tread carefully, knowing that the spirits of the jungle watch every step. Among them is a creature half seen, half imagined, the flying fox woman. Her eyes, it is said, gleam from the shadows of the trees, and her voice carries on the wind. Hunters whisper her name, seeking her favor before they set out. If she is angered, the forest will close in around them, and they will find nothing but silence. But if she is pleased, the animals will appear as if by magic, a sign that she has granted her blessing. In the Hawaiian Islands, the Menehune, small and elusive, are both revered and feared. They are the night workers, building fish ponds and temples with a skill unmatched by human hands. When something extraordinary is found, a perfectly stacked wall in the middle of the forest, a pool that seems to shimmer unnaturally, it is said to be their handiwork. Farmers leave offerings at the edges of their fields, hoping to earn the Menehune's goodwill. For those who treat the land with respect, the Menehune are allies. But to those who desecrate the land, they are a force of quiet vengeance, disappearing into the shadows before justice strikes. These creatures also serve as guides. In Micronesia, the people speak of the turtle spirits, wise and ancient beings who help navigate the unpredictable seas. It is said that a traveler lost at sea can call upon the spirit of the turtle to lead them to safety. In the stillness of the ocean, when the horizon blurs into infinity, a lone turtle surfacing is seen as a sign, a reminder that help is near. This bond between humans and the turtle is not just practical, it is sacred, an unspoken promise between two lives intertwined. Even the most fearsome creatures serve a purpose beyond terror. The bunyip of Australian lore, with its haunting cries and terrifying visage, is a reminder of the dangers of the waterholes and billabongs. It warns children not to wander too close, to respect the forces they do not understand. Parents speak of the bunyip not to frighten but to protect, to instill a respect for the unknown and the unseen. In every story, and every whispered prayer, there is a thread that connects these creatures to the people who believe in them. They are more than symbols, they are guardians of the sacred, protectors of balance, and bridges between the mortal and the divine. Whether they are revered with ceremonies, feared in the silence of the night, or thanked with quiet offerings, their presence lingers like a heartbeat, steady and enduring. The ground was parched, its cracks spreading like veins across the barren land. The sun blazed high above, unrelenting, as if testing the endurance of everything beneath it. Then, in the distance, the faint shimmer of a rainbow began to form. It wasn't the gentle curve that followed a rainstorm, but something more profound, more alive. The colors pulsed, rippling like water, and in that moment, it was as though the earth itself held its breath. The elders spoke of this, the rainbow serpent, ancient and immense, a being older than the stones, older than the stars. They said it was the source of all creation, the force that brought life to the land. When the world was formless, when there was no sky, no rivers, no trees, the serpent moved through the darkness. Its body carved the earth, shaping valleys and mountains, and as it moved, it sang the world into being. Its voice was the first sound, its song the heartbeat of the land. To the people, the rainbow serpent was not just a story, it was the essence of existence. In its coils lay the rivers, lifelines that threaded through the vastness of Australia. The rivers flowed because the serpent willed it so, its eternal form slipping beneath the surface. In the rainy season, when the rivers swelled and the land turned lush, the serpent's presence was felt in every drop. But in the dry season, when the land cracked and the waterholes shrank, its absence was a quiet reminder of its power and mercy. The stories of the rainbow serpent vary across clans and communities, but they share a common reverence. Some say the serpent emerged from the sky, descending to a barren earth. Others believe it was always here, lying dormant until it felt the call to awaken. In some tales, it is a creator, and in others, it is a destroyer. Its moods, like the seasons, are unpredictable. When angered, it can unleash floods or storms, and when pleased, it brings rain and abundance. The people live with this duality, understanding that creation and destruction are bound together, just as the serpent's coils are endless. There are places where the rainbow serpent is said to rest, sacred sites marked by its presence. These places hum with energy, and to step upon them carelessly is to risk inviting its wrath. Uluru, that great monolith rising from the desert, is whispered to be one of its dwellings. The red earth there seems alive, glowing with a light that shifts with the day, as though the serpent's spirit moves within. Waterholes surrounded by lush greenery in the middle of arid lands are also said to be its work, gifts left behind for those who respect the balance of nature. The serpent's body, with its shimmering scales of every color, represents the unity of all things. The sky and the earth, the water and the fire, life and death, all are bound together by its form. To the people, it is a reminder that no life stands alone. Each creature, each tree, each grain of sand is connected, threads in a vast, intricate web. When the serpent moves, it does so for all, its actions rippling outward like waves in a still pond. The elders teach that the rainbow serpent watches over the waterholes, those precious sources of life in the harsh landscape. They warn the children not to disturb these places, to tread lightly and speak with respect. It is said that those who disregard the serpent's domain may feel its wrath, its roar in the wind, its strike in the storm. But those who honor it, who offer thanks for the water they take, will find themselves protected, their paths guided by its unseen presence. Even now, as the world changes, the serpent's legacy endures. Its stories are painted on the walls of caves, its form etched into the landscape. Its song is sung by those who remember, carried through the generations like a flame that refuses to die. When the rains come, drenching the land and bringing life back to the rivers, it is said that the serpent stirs once more, its body gliding beneath the surface, unseen but felt. The rainbow serpent is not just a being but a promise that the land and its people are one. Through its stories, the people learn to care for the earth, to respect its cycles, and to find their place within it. The serpent reminds them that they are not masters of the land, but its stewards, entrusted with its care for as long as they walk upon it. And so, even as the colors fade from the horizon and the night settles over the land, the presence of the serpent lingers. The stars above seem brighter, their light reflecting the scales of the unseen guardian below. The earth, the rivers, the people, they all carry its mark, a bond that cannot be broken, a legacy that will never be forgotten. The stillness of the waterhole was deceptive. Its surface, smooth as glass, reflected the pale light of the moon. Around it, the reeds whispered secrets to the night breeze, their slender forms swaying as though something unseen passed through them. The silence was heavy, not the peaceful kind, but the kind that prickled the skin and quickened the heartbeat. Somewhere beneath that calm surface, something ancient waited. The Bunyip. The very name carries a weight, an echo of fear and awe. For as long as anyone can remember, stories have circled like ripples on the water. Some say it has the face of a dog, others the tusks of a walrus. Its body might be covered in feathers or slick with scales. No one can agree on what it truly looks like, but they all agree on one thing: it is a creature that does not belong to the world of men. It lurks where the water is dark and deep, and where it is most unwise to tread. The elders warn the young to stay away from the billabongs and swamps at night. The Bunyip watches, they say, their voices low and grave. It takes those who do not respect its waters. A shiver often follows their words, and for good reason. Many have claimed to hear its cry, a haunting, guttural wail that pierces the night and echoes through the land. To hear it is to feel the weight of something watching, something that does not forget. There are tales of those who ignored the warnings. A hunter, bold and defiant, strayed too close to the edge of a swamp. He had laughed at the stories, calling them old wives' tales. But as he bent to fill his hands with water, the surface broke. A shadow rose, dark and immense, its form just indistinct enough to be terrifying. The hunter's scream was swallowed by the night, and when morning came, there was nothing left but scattered reeds and the eerie silence of the swamp. What makes the Bunyip so fearsome is its elusiveness. It is not seen, not clearly, and that makes it more real than anything tangible. Its shape shifts in the imagination, taking on whatever form frightens the mind most. A creature with glowing eyes that pierce the darkness. A mass of writhing limbs that rises from the depths. A beast whose very presence chills the air. To some, it is a guardian, punishing those who pollute the sacred waters. To others, it is a predator, an eternal hunger that preys on the careless and the bold. In the stillness of a drought-stricken land, the Bunyip becomes more than a story. The waterholes, precious and dwindling, are the lifeblood of the outback. The people depend on them, as do the creatures that call the harsh landscape home. But the Bunyip reminds them that these waters are not merely theirs to take. They belong to something older, something that does not forgive greed or disrespect. By day, the waterholes are unremarkable. Birds dart across their surfaces, and dragonflies dance in the sunlight. But as dusk falls, they change. The air grows heavy, the shadows deepen, and the silence becomes oppressive. Even the animals seem to know to keep their distance. The kangaroo that drank fearlessly by day now hesitates, its ears twitching at every whisper of wind. It's as though the land itself remembers the stories, and the presence of the Bunyip becomes undeniable. For some, the Bunyip is more than a cautionary tale. It is a reminder of the fragility of life in the Australian bush. To respect the waterholes, to tread lightly in the swamps, is to show humility in the face of nature's power. To ignore this is to risk invoking the wrath of a creature that embodies the untamed and the unknown. Parents tell their children of the Bunyip not to scare them, but to teach them respect, patience, and caution in a world that is both beautiful and unforgiving. There is an old story, passed down through generations, of a young woman who wandered too far from her camp. She was searching for water, her hands blistered from carrying empty clay pots. As the sun dipped below the horizon, she found herself at the edge of a murky billabong. Thirst overcame her caution, and she knelt to drink. But as she did, she felt the air grow cold, and the surface of the water began to ripple. A low growl, guttural and deep, rose from the depths. Terrified, she scrambled back, dropping her pot as a dark shape surged upward. She ran without looking back, her breath ragged, her heart pounding. When she returned to her camp, her hair was streaked white, her eyes wide with unspeakable fear. "The bunyip," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It lives." Whether the bunyip is real or a figment of collective imagination hardly matters. Its presence is felt in the hearts of those who live near the waterholes and swamps. Its cry echoes in the winds that sweep across the land. Its shadow lingers in the depths where no light can reach. It is a creature born of the land itself, its form and nature as wild and untamed as the outback it calls home. And as long as there are dark waters and silent nights, the bunyip will remain, waiting, watching, reminding all who hear its tale that some mysteries are best left undisturbed. The forest stood silent, its towering eucalypts swaying gently under the weight of the wind. The twilight painted the trees in hues of amber and shadow, their trunks stretching endlessly into the dimming sky. There was something about the stillness, a quiet too complete, as if the forest itself held its breath. A snapping twig broke the silence. It was faint but sharp, a sound that didn't belong. People say there are things in these woods that shouldn't exist, beings whose presence you feel before you ever see them. The Yowie. It's more than a name whispered around campfires, it's a presence that lingers in the darkest corners of the bush. Taller than any man, covered in thick, matted hair, its face is said to be human-like yet utterly alien, its eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight. Those who've seen it speak of its immense size, its stride like a shadow crossing the earth, silent yet heavy enough to leave footprints in the hard ground. The stories come from everywhere, lonely roads cutting through dense forests, hikers wandering too far off the trail, campers woken in the dead of night by the sound of something huge moving just outside their tents. There are accounts of sudden, eerie whistles echoing through the trees, a sound too deliberate to belong to the wind. Others swear they've heard guttural grunts, deep and resonant, carrying an edge of menace. In some tales, the Yowie is a shy, almost gentle giant, retreating into the wilderness at the first sign of humans. It watches from a distance, curious but cautious, as though weighing the threat we pose. But in other stories, it's not so kind. There are whispers of campers who vanished without a trace, of hunters who felt an overwhelming sense of being followed, their every move mirrored by something unseen. And then there are the footprints, massive, unmistakable, pressed into the soft earth of riverbanks and trails. Each print tells a story, a brief moment when the Yowie's world brushed against ours. One man, a logger from Queensland, spoke of his encounter with trembling hands. He had been working late, the sun dipping below the horizon as he packed up his tools. As he walked back to his truck, he felt it, a presence, heavy and oppressive, as though the forest itself had grown eyes. He turned, expecting to see a wallaby or maybe a stray cow, but what he saw froze him in place. It was tall, impossibly tall, standing between the trees. Its eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the dying light, and its breath came in slow, heavy bursts. For a moment, neither moved. Then, as if deciding it had seen enough, the figure turned and melted into the trees, its massive form disappearing like a shadow swallowed by the night. There's an unease that comes with the idea of the Yowie, a creature that defies reason yet feels entirely possible. Australia's bushland is vast, its depths unexplored. Who's to say what could be hiding there? The indigenous stories of the Yowie, passed down through countless generations, speak of a being that has always been. The tribes give it different names, but the essence remains the same, a guardian, a hunter, a creature tied to the land in ways we cannot understand. They describe it as something to be respected, perhaps feared, but never underestimated. Skeptics dismiss the stories, calling them exaggerations, misidentified wildlife, or the product of overactive imaginations. They say the footprints are hoaxes, the sounds are just birds or wind, and the sightings are nothing more than tricks of the light. But for those who have stood in the presence of the Yowie, who have felt the weight of its gaze, there is no doubt. It's not a question of belief, it's a memory that lingers, a shadow that follows them long after they've left the forest. Even in the absence of proof, the stories persist, each one adding another thread to the tapestry of the Yowie legend. There's the family driving through the Blue Mountains who saw something enormous cross the road in front of them, moving with a speed that defied its size. There's the bushwalker in the Daintree rainforest who stumbled upon a makeshift shelter, its walls woven from branches too thick for human hands to bend. And there's the farmer in the Northern Territory who found his livestock scattered, their pens crushed as though something immense had passed through. What gives the Yoi its power is its mystery. It's not something you can pin down or categorize. It exists in the spaces between certainty and doubt, a creature that feels as though it belongs to the earth itself, untamed and unyielding. The forest is its home, a world we can enter but never truly belong to. It reminds us of how small we are, how little we understand, and how much there is still to fear. The Yoi is more than just a legend. It's a feeling, an echo, a reminder of the wilderness that refuses to be tamed. And as long as the forests stand, as long as the shadows stretch long across the land, the Yoi will remain, unseen but not forgotten, a guardian of the wild, a ghost of the bush, a whisper in the night that keeps the brave and the foolish looking over their shoulders. The rocks of Arnhem Land stand like ancient sentinels, their jagged forms etched with time and mystery. By day, they shimmer under the harsh sun, their crevices home to whispering winds. By night, under the glow of countless stars, they take on a different life. Shadows dance on their surfaces, and the air feels heavy with a presence unseen but deeply felt. It's said these stones are not merely rock, they hold the stories of beings older than memory, beings who slip through the cracks of reality as easily as one steps through a doorway. Mimi spirits. Fragile, slender as reeds, they are said to be so thin that the wind itself can carry them. They live within the rocky folds of the land, hidden in places where no human can tread. Their forms, delicate and elongated, are painted on the ancient walls by those who have known of them for thousands of years. Their faces, faintly human but impossibly ethereal, peer out from the ochre and charcoal, as if watching, waiting. The elders speak of them in hushed tones, their voices tinged with reverence. The Mimis are the first artists, they say. They taught us how to paint, how to tell our stories on the stone. But the Mimis are more than teachers. They are keepers of the land, guardians of its secrets, spirits who move between worlds with a grace that humans can only dream of. There's a story of a hunter who strayed too close to their domain. He was young, bold, and thought himself above the warnings of his elders. As he climbed the rocks in search of prey, he noticed something strange, a faint, high-pitched laugh, so soft it could have been mistaken for the wind. But it wasn't the wind. He froze, his heart pounding, and then he saw them. Slender forms flitting between the shadows, too quick to follow, too quiet to be real. They seemed to beckon him, their movements playful but tinged with something more, a warning, perhaps, or a challenge. He turned and ran, his footsteps clumsy and loud against the ancient stone. When he returned to his people, his voice trembled as he told them what he'd seen. "The Mimis," he said. "They're watching." To encounter a Mimi is to be caught between awe and fear. They are not like other spirits. They are not monstrous or terrifying in the traditional sense, but their presence is disarming, their otherworldliness impossible to ignore. They move as if they are part of the rock itself, appearing and disappearing with a fluidity that defies comprehension. Their laughter, light and musical, can shift to something sharper, something that cuts through the air like a blade. It's said that to hear the laughter of the Mimis is to feel the weight of your own humanity, to know you are a guest in a world that is not your own. The paintings they left behind are more than art, they are a reminder. Each figure, slender and elongated, seems alive, as if frozen mid-movement. Their arms stretch impossibly long, their legs taper to points, and their bodies seem to flow with the contours of the rock. The elders say the Mimis painted themselves, using the stone as their canvas, their brushes nothing more than their own fingers. To look at these paintings is to feel their presence, as if the spirits are still there, just beyond the surface, watching. Some believe the Mimis are tricksters, playing games with those who wander too close. They lure the curious into their rocky homes, only to trap them there forever. Others see them as protectors, spirits who ensure that the land is respected, that its stories are not forgotten. There are tales of travelers who became lost in the rugged landscape, only to hear a soft, lilting voice guiding them to safety. The Mimis, the elders say with a nod, as if that explains everything. The Northern Territory is their domain, a place of extremes and contradictions. Its vastness feels endless, yet every rock, every crevice seems alive with unseen forces. The land itself hums with an energy that is both ancient and immediate, as if the past and present exist side by side. And in this land, the Mimis move freely, their slender forms slipping between worlds, their laughter echoing through the ages. There is a sacredness to their existence, a sense that they belong to something greater than human understanding. They are not bound by the rules of our world. They are not creatures of flesh and blood, but of spirit and shadow, their essence woven into the very fabric of the land. To speak of them is to acknowledge the unseen, to admit that there are things we cannot explain but feel in our bones. The Mimis remind us of the fragility of life, of the thin veil that separates our world from the unknown. They are a whisper in the wind, a shadow on the rock, a presence that lingers long after the sun has set. They are the keepers of stories, the first artists, the spirits who move with the grace of the land itself. And as long as the rocks stand, weathered and worn by time, the Mimis will remain, their laughter carrying on the wind, their slender forms slipping just out of sight, their presence felt in every breath of the Northern Territory. The Cape York Peninsula stretches out like a timeless land, wild and untamed. The forests here grow thick and ancient, their roots twisted deep into the soil. By day, the sunlight filters through the canopy, casting dappled patterns on the forest floor. But as the light fades, something shifts. The air grows still, the trees seem taller, and shadows creep out from their hiding places. It is in these moments that the presence of the Quincan spirits is most felt, watchful, waiting, and not always kind. Quincans are not easy to forget, once you've heard of them. They're as much a part of this land as the trees and rocks, yet they don't belong to the world you know. Their forms are strange, their behavior unpredictable. Some Quincans are said to be small, quick, and mischievous, darting through the shadows like restless children. Others are tall, lanky, and menacing, their elongated limbs giving them an unnatural gait. It's the big ones, the malevolent ones, that send shivers down spines. They are called Timera, and when they appear, even the bravest feel their courage drain away. The stories say the Quincans move with purpose, though what that purpose is remains unclear. Sometimes, they seem playful, moving objects just out of reach or creating noises that seem to come from nowhere. Laughter, sharp and eerie, can ripple through the air, making the hairs on your arms stand on end. Other times, they seem angry, protective of their land. In those moments, there is no mistaking the danger. They strike fear into the hearts of those who wander too far into their domain, their forms flickering between the trees like phantoms. One story tells of a fisherman who strayed too close to the cliffs at dusk. The land there was sacred, marked by caves adorned with ancient paintings. He knew the warnings but dismissed them, thinking only of the day's catch. As he cast his net, a strange stillness settled over the water. The usual sounds of the bush, birds, insects, the rustle of leaves, fell silent. Then, a low, guttural sound emerged, growing louder, closer. He turned to see a figure, impossibly tall and thin, stepping out of the shadows. Its eyes burned with an otherworldly light, and its mouth twisted into a sneer. He dropped everything and ran, his heartbeat echoing in his ears. When he reached safety, his hands shook as he spoke of what he'd seen. "It wasn't human," he whispered. "It wasn't anything I've ever seen before." The elders of the Cape York tribes have long warned of the Quincans. They are spirits of the land, they say, and they do not take kindly to disrespect. The paintings in the caves tell their story, slender figures etched into stone, their limbs stretching unnaturally, their eyes wide and watching. These depictions are more than art, they are reminders. The Quincans are always there, even when you cannot see them. They are etched into the memory of the land, inseparable from its essence. Not all Quincans are to be feared, though. Some, like the Mjim, are said to be protectors, watching over the people and guiding them when danger looms. But even they are not to be trifled with. Their power is great, and their motives are their own. The people of Cape York understand this balance. Respect is given to the land and its spirits, offerings made to keep the Quinkins at bay. Fires are lit at night, their glow a ward against the shadows that hold too many secrets. The Quinkins remind you of how thin the veil is between the known and the unknown. Their laughter, their cries, their fleeting forms, they are echoes of a world older than ours, a world that refuses to be forgotten. The Cape York Peninsula is their home, and they guard it fiercely. To tread there without care is to invite their wrath, to feel the weight of their eyes in the darkness, to hear their whispers as they decide your fate. It is said that once you've encountered a Quincan, you never see the land the same way again. The trees seem taller, the shadows deeper, the silence heavier. The air carries a weight you hadn't noticed before, as though every breath you take is being measured. And when the sun dips low and the forest grows dark, you find yourself glancing over your shoulder, wondering if you'll catch a glimpse of a long-limbed figure slipping through the trees, its eyes glowing faintly, its laughter echoing faintly on the wind. The ocean holds its breath as the sun sinks beneath the horizon. Waves lap gently against the hull of a fishing boat, but the air feels heavy, charged with something unspoken. The fisherman, his hands calloused from years of toil, leans over the edge, scanning the endless expanse of water. Suddenly, a shadow moves beneath the surface, larger than anything he's ever seen. His heart races, and the old tales flood back to him, the stories whispered late at night about the Moha Moha, a creature as elusive as the sea's deepest secrets. The Moha Moha isn't a name spoken lightly. For centuries, sailors and coastal dwellers have described a being unlike any other. Its body is said to be immense, its shape a puzzle that shifts with every retelling. Some claim it resembles a monstrous stingray, its wings slicing through the water with eerie grace. Others say it has a jagged, almost serpentine form, its movements hypnotic and terrifying. Always, though, the Moha Moha is described as something you cannot forget, something that leaves an imprint on your soul. One man, years ago, swore he saw it during a storm. He'd been aboard a small vessel, struggling against towering waves and a sky lit only by lightning. In one blinding flash, he glimpsed it, an enormous, dark mass rising from the water, its outline sharp against the chaos. He spoke of a gleaming eye that seemed to pierce through the tempest, fixing on him with a knowing gaze. When the storm subsided, he was found adrift, his boat battered but intact. He never sailed again. The Moha Moha's presence is more than just a sighting, it's an encounter with something that feels ancient, something that belongs to a world untouched by humanity. Those who have seen it talk of a stillness that follows, a silence so profound it feels as though the ocean itself is paying tribute to the creature. And then, just as suddenly as it appeared, it's gone, leaving only ripples on the surface and a haunting memory behind. There are stories passed down among coastal tribes, stories that speak of the Moha Moha not as a beast, but as a guardian. It is said to dwell in waters that hold great meaning, protecting them from harm. To see the Moha Moha is to be reminded of the ocean's power, of its vastness and mystery. It is a warning, some say, to respect the waters and all they contain. Those who ignore this warning do so at their peril. Fishermen tell of nights when their nets come back empty, though the waters are alive with fish. They say the Moha Moha's shadow passed beneath them, its immense form scattering the shoals and leaving an eerie stillness in its wake. Others speak of boats that disappeared without a trace, swallowed by the same waters where the Moha Moha is said to roam. The old-timers shake their heads knowingly, their eyes clouded with memories they refuse to share. What makes the Moha Moha so haunting is its elusiveness. For every tale of a sighting, there are countless others who claim it's nothing but a legend, a figment of the imagination born from long nights at sea. But those who have encountered it don't need proof. They carry the weight of its presence in their eyes, and the way their voices falter when they speak of it. They know that some truths are too vast to be captured, too wild to be tamed. There is a beach in northern Australia where the sands glow pale under the moonlight. It's said that on certain nights, when the tide is just right, the Moha Moha comes close to shore. The waves whisper its name, and the air is thick with anticipation. People gather in hushed groups, their eyes scanning the horizon, waiting for a sign. Some claim they've seen the water shimmer unnaturally, as though disturbed by something massive moving just beneath the surface. Others insist they've heard a low, resonant sound, like the ocean humming in harmony with the creature. Even in the absence of sightings, the Moha Moha's legend lives on. Children grow up hearing the tales, their imaginations fired by the idea of a creature so grand, so unknowable. They whisper to each other at night, spinning new stories to add to the old ones. What if the Moha Moha is watching us, they wonder, gliding through the dark waters, its eyes taking in everything. The ocean is a place of paradoxes, calm yet fierce, familiar yet alien. The Moha Moha embodies this contradiction, a being that feels as much a part of the sea as the tides themselves. It doesn't need to roar or thrash to command attention. Its power lies in its mystery, in the way it slips between the known and the unknown, reminding us how little we truly understand about the world we live in. To those who have crossed its path, the Moha Moha is more than just a story. It is a presence, a force that lingers long after the waves have settled. And though the sea stretches vast and empty in the daylight, they know better. Somewhere out there, beneath the surface, it waits. The night sky is more than just a blanket of stars. To the Aboriginal people of Australia, the sky is alive, filled with beings and spirits that govern the stars and constellations. It's not just an empty expanse overhead, it is a canvas painted with stories, each star a flicker of a past event, a myth, or a lesson. On clear nights, when the stars shine brightest, you might feel as though they are watching you, silent and wise, whispering tales of ancient beings who live among the stars. It is said that the Aboriginal sky beings are the custodians of the cosmos, the ones who rule over the stars and constellations. These celestial creatures don't just float aimlessly above, they have purpose, power, and influence. Their presence is felt in the rhythm of the seasons, the movement of the planets, and the dance of the stars. Their stories are passed down from generation to generation, told by the fireside as the flickering light casts shadows on the faces of those who listen. One of the most well-known of these sky beings is Byame, the Sky Father. He is often depicted as a creator god who watches over the earth from his place in the heavens. It's said that he shaped the land and the creatures upon it, bringing order to a world that was once in chaos. But Byame's power extends beyond the earth. He governs the stars, the constellations, and the very fabric of the night sky. When the sun sets and darkness falls, Byame's eyes are said to open, keeping watch over the world below. His gaze is both protective and stern, ensuring that the balance of nature is maintained. There are other sky beings too, some more mysterious, others more playful. The emu in the sky is a prominent figure in Aboriginal astronomy. Unlike the figures of animals and humans that we often see in the night sky, the emu is a black shape, drawn by the dark patches of the Milky Way. It's not a constellation in the usual sense, but a powerful representation of the bird that is sacred to many Aboriginal cultures. The emu in the sky is a reminder that even in the vastness of space, the creatures of the earth have their place in the heavens. When you look up and see the emu's form stretching across the sky, you're reminded that the land and the stars are never truly separate. Then, there is the story of the Seven Sisters, a tale that has been told for millennia. The Seven Sisters are represented by the Pleiades cluster, a group of stars that shine brightly in the night sky. To the Aboriginal people, they are not just a group of stars, they are the spirits of 7 women who once roamed the earth. The legend tells of how the sisters were pursued by a man, the hunter, who chased them across the sky. To escape him, the sisters fled into the heavens, where they became the stars we see today. But the hunter's pursuit did not stop. He became the bright star, Orion, chasing them eternally across the sky. Their story is one of escape, of freedom, and of the eternal bond between the earth and the stars. The sky beings are not just figures in the night sky, they are deeply connected to the earth and its cycles. The movement of the stars marks the changing of seasons, the coming of rains, and the time for hunting and gathering. The appearance of certain constellations in the sky tells the Aboriginal people when it's time to plant crops, when to fish, and when to hold ceremonies. The sky becomes a guide, a sacred map that connects all living things to the cosmos. For the Aboriginal people, the stars are not distant objects in the sky, but living, breathing beings that influence life on Earth. They don't simply represent the past, they shape the present and the future. The constellations are seen as ancestors watching over the land, their spirits intertwined with the very fabric of the universe. Every star holds a story, every constellation a lesson. To look up at the night sky is to look into the hearts of those who came before, to hear their voices in the wind, to feel their presence in the stillness of the night. And yet, despite the vastness of the sky and the countless stars that light it, there is always a sense of intimacy in the stories of the sky beings. They are not distant gods, but beings who walk with the people, watching over them, guiding them. Their power is not one of domination, but of care and protection. They are the silent guardians of the earth, the watchful eyes that keep the balance between the land and the stars. Sometimes, on clear nights, when the air is crisp and the stars are particularly bright, you can almost hear their whispers, soft, like the rustling of leaves in a gentle breeze. And if you listen closely enough, you might just feel their presence, not above you, but within you, as if the sky itself is reaching out to remind you of the deep connection that exists between the earth and the stars. The sky beings are not separate from us. They are part of us. Their stories, their wisdom, their power are woven into the very fabric of who we are, and when we look up at the night sky, we are reminded that we, too, are part of the stars. The night was silent, but the air hummed with a strange, unspoken energy. A cool breeze whispered through the trees, carrying with it a distant, haunting echo, an echo of something ancient, something that had watched over the land for centuries. In the heart of the dense bush, hidden in the shadows of the jagged cliffs, stood a cave. Its mouth gaped open, dark and foreboding, yet something inside it seemed to call, like a heartbeat that thumped through the stone. And there, just beyond the entrance, a figure stood. Massive and unmoving, its form almost indistinguishable from the rocks surrounding it. It was a creature made of stone, yet alive in a way that sent shivers down the spine. The Nargan. To the people who knew the land, it was a guardian, one that could never be tamed, but one whose presence was as vital as the earth itself. The Nargan is not just a myth, it is a keeper of sacred spaces, an embodiment of the land's soul. It is said that this stone guardian watches over the caves, protecting them from those who are not meant to enter. But its role extends beyond mere protection. It guards a deep connection to the spiritual world, one that only a few are allowed to witness. Legends tell that the Nargan is tied to the sacred rituals of women. There are places in the ancient caves where women come together, their voices rising in song, their bodies swaying in the rhythm of the earth. These sacred ceremonies, passed down through generations, connect the women to the land, to each other, and to the spirits that walk among them. The Nargan's presence is said to be felt during these rites, its eyes, carved into the stone, watching over them as they perform their rituals, guarding the sanctity of their connection to the land. But the Nargan is not a gentle protector. Those who venture too close to its realm without the right intentions are met with a force unlike anything they've known. It is said that the stone guardian can animate, moving with a terrifying speed and strength, its stone limbs shifting to block the entrance or crush those who seek to desecrate the sacred space. Its power is beyond human comprehension, a reminder that some forces are far greater than any mortal. The stories of the Nargan are filled with warnings, stories of those who tried to steal from the caves, who sought to uncover the secrets hidden within the stone. They never returned. The earth swallowed them whole, leaving no trace behind. In some versions of the tale, the Nargan itself is said to have dragged them into the depths of the cave, where they are never seen again. Its rage is swift, but it is not without reason. The Nargan does not act out of malice, it acts to preserve the sacredness of the land, to protect the rituals that bind the people to the earth. To understand the Nargan is to understand the deep connection between the land and the people, the way that stories, rituals, and the land itself are woven together in a tapestry of meaning. The Nargan is not just a stone figure, it is a symbol of the earth's power, its untamable, mysterious nature. It is a reminder that there are forces in this world that cannot be controlled, that the earth has its own rhythm, its own life, and that life is sacred. But there is also a tenderness to the Nargan. For those who approach it with respect, who understand its purpose, there is a deeper connection to be found. The Nargan is said to recognize those who are worthy, who approach with reverence, with a heart full of understanding. For these people, the guardian is not a threat, but a silent companion, standing watch over them as they perform the sacred rituals, ensuring that the ancient bonds between the people and the land are maintained. The Nargan is a keeper of balance. It is both protector and punisher, a reminder that life cannot be lived without respect for the forces that govern the land. It is a symbol of the earth's ancient power, the quiet force that shapes and molds the world. Its presence is felt in the stillness of the cave, in the silence between the songs of the women, in the rustle of the leaves in the wind. It is everywhere, even when it is not seen. Its watchful eyes, carved into the stone, see everything. And when it is needed, the Nargan's wrath is swift, its power unyielding. In a way, the Nargan represents a timeless truth, that the earth has its own laws, its own will, and that there are things in this world that humans will never fully understand. The Nargan does not explain itself, does not need to. It simply is. Its existence is a reminder that some forces are beyond us, and they must be respected. There is beauty in that mystery, a beauty that speaks to something deep within the soul. And so, as the wind howls through the trees and the shadows of the cliffs stretch long into the night, the Nargan stands, silent, unmoving, and eternal. The caves are its domain, and within their depths lie stories that are older than time itself. The Nargan does not care for the passage of time, it simply watches, as it always has, guarding the sacredness of the land and the rituals that tie the people to it. To approach it is to feel the weight of history, to know that some things are beyond comprehension, beyond human reach. It is a guardian, a keeper of secrets, a living testament to the power of the earth. The heavy mist rolled in from the ocean, swirling around the jagged rocks that dotted the shoreline like ancient sentinels. The air was thick with the scent of salt water, and the quiet hum of the waves crashing against the shore seemed to echo in the soul. There, on a secluded hill, stood a temple, its stone walls weathered by time, yet steadfast in their watch over the island below. It was in these very temples, built from the earth and bound by the sea, that the Moo were said to dwell. Silent, yet powerful, they were the guardians of the sacred waters, their presence as much a part of the land as the rocks and trees themselves. The Moo were not dragons in the way most people might imagine. They were creatures of water and earth, with serpentine bodies that shimmered like rain-drenched stones, long and sinuous, their scales glistening under the moonlight. Their eyes were deep and dark, full of ancient knowledge, and their breath was a mist that rose from the water to touch the sky. They were beings of power, tied to the very soul of the island, and their connection to the Hawaiian temples was more than just a matter of guardianship. The Moo were the keepers of balance, watching over the sacred rituals and ensuring that the waters remained pure, that the land was cared for, and that the people lived in harmony with the forces of nature. To the Hawaiian people, the Moo were not just legends, they were a part of the island's spirit. The temples, often situated near the coast or perched high above the waters, were dedicated to the gods of the sea, and the Moo were considered their earthly manifestations. The temples themselves were seen as living places, imbued with the energy of the gods and the spirit of the Moo. These sacred spaces were not simply places of worship, they were areas where the earth and sky, the water and the people, came together in a union of deep reverence and respect. The Moo watched over these places, ensuring that they remained undisturbed, protected from those who would harm or desecrate them. Legends told of the Moo's incredible power to shape the land, to summon the waves and calm the storms, to control the flow of rivers and the ebb of the tides. It was said that they could shift the course of the waters with a flick of their tails, part the seas, and bring rain when the land grew thirsty. But their power was not given freely. The Moo demanded respect for the land, for the water, and for the sacred balance that they embodied. To disrespect the Moo was to risk the wrath of the gods themselves. Villagers told stories of those who had failed to honor the Moo, who had disregarded the sacredness of the temples, only to suffer the consequences of their ignorance. The seas would rise, the rains would not come, and crops would wither in the dry earth. The Moo were not vengeful, they were simply the guardians of balance, and when balance was disturbed, the natural world would reclaim its power. There were accounts of Moo appearing to those who needed their protection. Sailors lost in storms, fishermen whose nets were torn by rough seas, or travelers on long journeys, all had stories of the Moo guiding them, appearing in the mist as a shadow on the water, leading them safely to shore. They were said to be able to communicate with the humans they protected, speaking through the rhythm of the waves, the rustle of the leaves, and the movement of the tides. The Moo were the bridge between the human world and the divine, and they carried with them the weight of both. Yet, despite their fierce guardianship, there was a gentleness to the Moo, a deep connection to the water that was soothing and nurturing. The Moo were seen as symbols of renewal, of the endless cycle of life, death, and rebirth. In the water, they were both creators and destroyers, giving life to the fish that swam in the oceans, nurturing the plants that grew on the shores, and ensuring that the rains would come to refresh the land. But they also had the power to flood the shores, to wash away the things that were no longer needed, and to restore balance where it had been lost. The Moo were not just protectors, they were a reminder that life is in constant motion, that the world is ever-changing, and that the people must learn to live in harmony with the forces around them. The connection between the Moo and the Hawaiian people was not just one of fear or reverence, it was one of mutual respect. The Moo were not seen as distant, untouchable gods, but as part of the island's spirit, as beings who lived alongside the people, whose energy flowed through the land and the sea, through the plants and the animals. The temples, built near the waters, were not just places of worship, they were the physical representation of the relationship between the people and the Moo. These were spaces where the people could come to honor the Moo, to offer gifts and prayers, and to seek guidance from the guardians of the sea. In the stories, the Moo were often portrayed as protectors of women, especially those who were involved in the sacred rituals of the temples. Women, who played an integral role in the ceremonies, were believed to have a special bond with the Moo, and the creatures would often appear to them in dreams or visions, guiding them through their rituals and helping them connect with the spiritual world. The Moo were seen as the embodiment of the feminine energy of the island, mysterious, powerful, and deeply connected to the life-giving forces of the earth. On stormy nights, when the wind howled and the rain lashed against the walls of the temple, the Moo's presence could be felt in the air. It was as if the very earth trembled with their power, as if the waters themselves were alive with their energy. The waves crashed harder, the winds howled louder, and the island seemed to hold its breath, as though waiting for the Moo to reveal themselves once more. In those moments, the people would offer their prayers, their songs, their gratitude to the guardians of the water. They knew that as long as the Moo watched over them, the island would remain safe, the waters would remain pure, and the balance would be kept. The Moo were not just creatures of the sea, they were a living part of the land's spirit, and their connection to the Hawaiian temples was a testament to the deep bond between the people and the forces of nature. They were the water's soul, and in return for their guardianship, the people offered their respect, their prayers, and their understanding of the sacred balance that tied them all together. In the heart of the Hawaiian Islands, the winds whisper tales of little ones, small in stature, but colossal in their abilities. They are the Menehune, the dwarf-like people said to have lived long before the first human footstep touched the islands. On moonlit nights, when the stars twinkle like diamonds, the earth itself seems to hold its breath. The Menehune are said to be busy in the shadows, building, crafting, and shaping the world, invisible to most, but ever-present to those who dare to believe. If you listen closely, the rustling of the leaves might not just be the wind, but the tiny footsteps of these hidden builders. The Menehune are not mere legends, nor are they fairy tale figures. To the Hawaiians, they were real. These beings, no taller than a child's waist, moved like shadows, unseen, but always working. With the strength of giants and the precision of master craftsmen, the Menehune were the unseen architects of the islands. They built roads, temples, and fish ponds with skill that left even the gods in awe. It's said that in a single night, they could transform a landscape, carving mountainsides or creating massive structures with tools that seemed too small for such tasks. They left behind only the whispers of their work, subtle signs that even today baffle historians and researchers. As the sun dips beneath the horizon, the stories of their craftsmanship are still spoken in hushed tones. The ancient fish ponds of the Hawaiian Islands, some of the most perfect constructions in the world, are often credited to the Menehune. The way these ponds were crafted, with such meticulous care that water flows in a perfect cycle, ensuring a constant supply of fish, remains a mystery. Who could build such a thing without leaving a trace? Who could fashion stone walls with such care, without a single misstep? The Menehune were said to have done this, with nothing more than their hands and the simple tools they carried. It was as though the very essence of nature flowed through their fingers, guiding them to create wonders. But the Menehune were not simply builders, they were guardians of the islands. Their presence was tied to the sacredness of the land. To disturb the sites they crafted was said to bring misfortune, a reminder of the great respect owed to these small but mighty beings. Legends tell of children who would wander too close to the ancient ruins, only to be met with a mysterious force, an unseen hand that guided them away before harm could come. Those who dared to speak of the Menehune in disrespect would find their crops failing, their homes crumbling, and their lives unsettled. The Menehune were the keepers of the island's harmony, their subtle touch ensuring that balance was maintained. Though they were often seen as tricksters, playful and mischievous, the Menehune's spirit was one of deep reverence for the land. Their work was their worship. They believed that the earth was alive, and every stone they placed, every tree they carved, was done in honor of the gods who watched over the islands. Some say that when a temple was constructed, the Menehune would arrive in the dead of night, moving swiftly and silently, working by the light of the moon. By morning, what was once an empty plot of land was transformed into a site of power, a sacred space where the gods could commune with the people. The Menehune were also said to possess a magic of their own, one that was tied to the island's natural forces. They could control the elements, summon rain to nourish the land, or create wind to guide the voyaging canoes safely home. The strength of their magic lay in their connection to the earth, the oceans, and the sky. They could call upon the spirits of nature to help them complete their work, a partnership with the world around them that was as old as the islands themselves. It was said that when the Menehune worked, the elements bent to their will, and no task was too great for them. Despite their power and skill, the Menehune were elusive. Their world was one of secrecy, hidden from the eyes of those who were not worthy of their trust. If a human was fortunate enough to spot them, it was said to be a sign of great luck, but few could claim to have seen them. Some say the Menehune would appear in the early morning mist, their tiny forms moving swiftly through the underbrush, barely visible in the soft light. Others claim they would hear the sounds of their work, the tapping of tiny hammers, the scraping of stone against stone, but when they ventured closer, there was nothing to be found but the evidence of their labor. The Menehune were not just builders, they were caretakers. They lived in harmony with the land, respecting every plant, every animal, and every stone that made up the islands they called home. They understood the rhythms of nature better than anyone, knowing when to plant and when to harvest, when to move with the seasons and when to rest. The Menehune were a reflection of the island's spirit, small, yet immeasurably powerful. They worked tirelessly, shaping the world in ways that few could understand, yet all could feel. Their magic wasn't in grand gestures, but in the quiet, unseen moments, in the stonework that stood strong against time, in the balance they maintained between the people and the land. Even today, remnants of the Menehune's work can be found throughout the islands. The ancient fish ponds, the stone walls, the sacred paths that stretch across valleys, all bear witness to the quiet genius of these small, mysterious beings. In the modern world, where technology and machinery have taken over the work that was once done by hand, the legacy of the Menehune remains a symbol of the harmony that can exist between humanity and nature. Their story is a reminder that greatness does not always come in the form of giants, but in the small, quiet gestures that leave lasting impressions on the world. The Menehune's work continues to live on, not just in the physical remnants they left behind, but in the stories that still echo through the generations. They are not just figures of the past, they are a part of the present, shaping the culture of the Hawaiian Islands and reminding everyone who hears their story of the importance of respect for the earth, for the past, and for the invisible forces that move through our world. The Menehune are not just builders, they are the quiet keepers of balance, the silent hands that shape the islands and continue to watch over them, even when no one is looking. The sea stretches endlessly beneath a sky filled with the fading orange of the setting sun. The waves crash against the shore, rhythmic, ancient, as if echoing a song sung long before time itself began. Among the rippling tides, beneath the surface, there is a presence, quiet, vast, and powerful. This is Tangaroa, the god of the sea, who watches over all creatures of the deep, from the tiniest fish to the monstrous beasts that prowl the ocean's darkest depths. His domain is a place where the forces of nature swirl and weave together, where beauty and terror exist side by side, and where every creature has its place in the balance of the world. Tangaroa, with his long, flowing hair of seaweed and eyes as deep and mysterious as the ocean itself, is both a creator and a destroyer. He is the ruler of the oceans, the keeper of the tides, the one who commands the whales, the sharks, the rays, and all the creatures that glide through the waters with silent grace. But to the Polynesians, he is more than just a god of the sea, he is the father of life. From his vast, watery domain, he birthed the creatures that inhabit the earth, the sky, and the sea. His children are as varied and mighty as the ocean itself. The whales, the fish, the sea birds, they all have their place in his world, a world that is as vast and unpredictable as the god himself. One of Tangaroa's most beloved children is the giant whale, revered by the Polynesians as a creature of wisdom and power. The whale, gliding through the water with effortless grace, is a symbol of Tangaroa's strength and nurturing nature. It is said that when the whale sings, it carries with it the voice of Tangaroa, a voice that reverberates through the oceans, a call to all living things, reminding them of their connection to the god of the sea. The songs of the whale are not just sounds, they are the stories of the ocean, of creation, of the world itself. The great sea creatures, like the whale, are thought to be the messengers of Tangaroa, carrying his will through the currents of the sea, spreading his message to every corner of the world. But not all of Tangaroa's creatures are gentle. Some are fierce, wild, and unpredictable, embodying the raw, untamed power of the sea. The shark, known as one of Tangaroa's most fearsome children, is a creature that strikes terror into the hearts of those who venture too close to its domain. With its razor-sharp teeth and endless hunger, the shark is both a predator and a guardian, representing the darker side of the sea. Yet even the shark is revered, for it is a necessary force in the balance of the ocean. It is a reminder that the sea is not just a place of peace and beauty, but a place where life and death are inextricably linked, where survival is a constant struggle. Then there is the mighty sea turtle, slow and steady, but also eternal. It carries the wisdom of the ocean on its back, and in its graceful movements, it reflects the calm and serene aspect of Tangaroa's domain. The turtle is a symbol of endurance, of long journeys, of the passage of time. It is said that the turtle is one of the oldest creatures in the sea, having swum through the oceans since the beginning of time. Its presence reminds the people of the cycles of nature, of the interconnectedness of all things, and the need to respect the rhythm of life. But perhaps the most mysterious of Tangaroa's creatures are those that dwell in the deepest parts of the ocean, where the light of the sun can never reach. These creatures are shrouded in darkness, their forms strange and alien, their lives hidden from human eyes. Some are said to have glowing bodies, others are said to be the shape of shadows, their very existence a mystery. These beings are thought to be the guardians of the underworld, the keepers of secrets that lie beyond the reach of mortals. They are the silent sentinels of the deep, creatures of shadow and light, of dreams and nightmares. Their presence is a reminder of the mysteries that lie beyond the horizon, the unknown depths where the sea holds its secrets close. Yet, despite the dangers and the darkness, Tangaroa's domain is not just one of terror. It is also a place of beauty, of awe, and of connection. The creatures of the sea, from the tiniest fish to the largest whale, are all bound together by the will of Tangaroa, each one playing its part in the intricate web of life. The sea is a place of constant change, where storms can rise in an instant and calm can return just as quickly. It is a place where life is both fragile and resilient, where the forces of creation and destruction coexist in perfect harmony. Tangaroa, with all his power, is a god who understands the delicate balance of life. His creatures, each with their own strengths and weaknesses, are reflections of the world he governs, a world where all things are connected, where no life is greater or lesser than another, and where every creature, no matter how small or how mighty, has a role to play in the grand design of the universe. The ocean is his, and in its depths, he watches over the creatures who live there. They are his children, each one unique, each one vital to the balance of the world. There are stories told by the people, of fishermen who cast their nets into the water and pull up a strange fish, unlike any they have seen before. They are told to be the work of Tangaroa's magic, his way of testing those who dare to brave the sea. Others speak of the great storms that come without warning, as if the very ocean itself has been stirred by Tangaroa's wrath. Yet, even in the storm's fury, there is a beauty, an energy, an untamed power that reminds those who witness it of the god's strength, his love for the sea, and the creatures who live within it. As the sun sets and the stars begin to twinkle in the vast night sky, the sea becomes a canvas of silver and blue, reflecting the mysteries of the heavens. Tangaroa, with his ocean kingdom, is ever present, watching over the creatures of the deep, his mighty hands stirring the waters, guiding the currents, and ensuring the balance is kept. His beasts, each one a part of him, continue to roam the depths, each one a story, a symbol, and a reminder of the power that flows through the seas, untamed, unfathomable, eternal. There is a place, hidden beneath the veil of mist and shadow, where the river's current runs swift and relentless. Its waters, dark and unyielding, sweep past the jagged rocks that jet out like the teeth of some ancient beast. The air is thick with a sense of awe, as though the land itself holds its breath, aware of the great guardian watching over it. There, in the deep waters or hidden within the caves, waits a creature so powerful, so ancient, that its presence is felt even when it is not seen. It is the Tanawa, an entity whose very name sends a chill down the spine, whose power and mystery shape the land itself. The Tanawa is not a single creature. It is many, shaped by the land's needs and the stories of those who have lived in its shadow. Some are said to be serpentine, their massive, scaled bodies slithering through rivers and lakes, their eyes glowing like embers in the dark. Others are more dragon-like, their great wings unfurled as they take flight through the stormy skies. Still others remain hidden in the caves, their forms elusive, like shadows that flicker just beyond the reach of the eye. But all Tanawa share one thing: they are protectors. In Maori tradition, the Tanawa are guardians, keepers of the land and the waters. They have existed as long as the rivers have flowed, as long as the mountains have risen from the earth. They are the spirits of nature, woven into the very fabric of the world. For the Maori people, the Tanawa are more than just creatures, they are a part of the living landscape, an integral force that shapes the world around them. It is said that each river, each lake, each cave, has its own Tanawa. These creatures are not to be feared unless disrespected. They are protectors of the places they inhabit, ensuring the balance between man and nature is maintained. The waters they guard are sacred, and those who approach them without reverence are met with a fierce wrath that can consume all in its path. But for those who understand the land, who tread lightly and show respect, the Tanawa are gentle and wise. They are the silent watchers, the keepers of the knowledge of the land. Legends tell of a Tanawa who dwelled in a river near a small village. The villagers, once fearful of the creature, learned over time that the Tanawa was not a monster, but a protector. When floods came, as they so often did, the Tanawa would stir the waters and hold back the raging currents, keeping the village safe from destruction. The villagers, in turn, honored the Tanawa with offerings, knowing that as long as they respected the river and the guardian within it, the land would continue to provide for them. But not all Tanawa are benevolent. Some are vengeful, angry spirits, their wrath swift and deadly. In times of unrest or injustice, the Tanawa may rise from the waters, its mighty form erupting from the depths to strike down those who have disturbed the natural order. These Tanawa serve as a reminder to all who live in the shadow of the mountains and rivers: the land will always seek balance, and it will never forgive those who tip the scales too far. The Tanawa's power extends beyond the physical. They are also the spiritual guardians of the Maori people. They are the keepers of sacred knowledge, the embodiment of the land's history and its future. The Tanawa are said to be the guardians of sacred caves, where the bones of ancestors rest, where knowledge is passed down from generation to generation. These caves, and the creatures within them, hold the stories of the people, and only those who are worthy are allowed to enter. To disturb a Tanawa's domain is to risk losing not just the land's protection but the wisdom of the ancestors as well. It is not just in the caves and rivers where the Tanawa's influence is felt. The Tanawa is also said to have the power to shape the land itself. When a Tanawa moves beneath the earth, it can cause the ground to shake, causing earthquakes that split the land apart. This is the Tanawa's way of reminding the people that the land is alive, that it can never be taken for granted. The Tanawa's power is not just a physical force, but a spiritual one that connects all things, reminding the people of their place in the world. In Maori lore, the Tanawa are often associated with the forces of nature, earthquakes, floods, and storms. They are not creatures that are easily understood. Their nature is as complex as the world they inhabit. Sometimes they are seen as protectors, their loyalty to the land unwavering, their power unquestionable. At other times, they are feared as harbingers of destruction, their anger a force that can tear the world apart. But no matter what form they take, the Tanawa are always a reminder of the deep connection between the people and the land, the delicate balance that must be maintained in order for the world to continue. There are stories told by the elders, passed down through the generations, of encounters with the Tanawa. One such story tells of a young man who, lost in the mountains, stumbled upon a river that flowed with a strange, glowing light. The river, he soon realized, was the home of a Tanawa. When he approached the river's edge, he saw the creature's eyes watching him from the water. But instead of attacking, the Tanawa spoke to him, its voice like the rumble of thunder, warning him of the dangers ahead. The young man, awestruck by the encounter, turned back, understanding that the Tanawa was not a creature to be feared, but one to be respected. These encounters, both terrifying and awe-inspiring, remind the people of the power of the Tanawa, of their connection to the earth, and the importance of living in harmony with the natural world. The Tanawa is not just a creature of the past, but a living presence, ever watchful, ever vigilant. It is a force that shapes the land, shapes the lives of those who live in its shadow, and guides them along the path of balance and respect. When the night falls, and the stars shine bright above the land, the Tanawa stirs beneath the waters, its ancient eyes watching over the world. It is both a guardian and a mystery, a force of nature that lives in the hearts of the people, a reminder that the land is alive, and that there are powers far greater than human understanding. The Tanawa is not just a story, it is a living, breathing part of the world, its spirit as old as the mountains themselves. And in the quiet whispers of the rivers and the murmur of the lakes, its presence is always felt. The ocean roars with fury, waves crashing against the shore like thunder, yet amidst the chaos, there is a figure, calm, cunning, and fearless. Maui, the trickster demigod, stands at the edge of the world, his eyes glimmering with mischief. He is not alone. Around him, the creatures of the earth and sky gather, as if they too sense that something extraordinary is about to happen. Birds wheel through the sky, whales breach the surface of the ocean, and the land itself seems to lean in, waiting for the next act in a tale that has been spun for centuries. Maui is not a god to follow the rules, nor is he one to be underestimated. His trickster ways are woven into the very fabric of the stories that have been told for generations, tales of his daring feats, his cleverness, and his deep connection with the animals who accompany him on his adventures. These animals are not mere companions, they are part of his power, part of his spirit. His bond with them is a dance of mutual respect, a harmony that bridges the gap between the mortal and the divine. The whales, vast and mysterious, have always been by Maui's side. They are the giants of the ocean, ancient creatures that have witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the ebb and flow of the tides. Yet, with Maui, they are not just beasts of the deep. They are his allies, his partners in the great battle against the forces that seek to upset the balance of the world. It is said that Maui once pulled the islands from the ocean floor with the help of these mighty whales, their great bodies supporting his every move as he reached into the sea and dragged the land into the light of day. Without them, the islands would have remained hidden, lost to the depths of the ocean. The whales are not just his helpers, they are his guides. They show him the hidden paths beneath the waves, the currents that others cannot see. Together, they chart the world's course, moving with a grace and power that only Maui could truly understand. When the world was young, it is said that Maui learned the songs of the ocean from these creatures, their songs carrying wisdom that has been passed down through the ages. To hear the call of a whale is to hear the heartbeat of the earth itself, and Maui has always known how to listen. But it is not just the whales that are drawn to him. Birds, too, find themselves in Maui's orbit. The sky is filled with their wings, and they carry his messages across the heavens, their feathers a tapestry of color against the endless blue. The birds are not just messengers, they are his eyes and ears, scouting the land, watching for any sign of trouble. Maui's trickery and wit are often made stronger by the birds' keen senses, their ability to see what others cannot. When Maui sought to slow the sun's journey across the sky, it was the birds who helped him gather the knowledge he needed, their cries echoing through the air as they flew alongside him, guiding him to the sun's resting place. Each creature in Maui's life plays a role, and each is more than just a tool or a companion. They are part of him, and he is part of them. His connection with the animals is as deep as the oceans he commands, as vast as the skies they inhabit. Together, they are a force of nature, unstoppable, wild, and free. Maui's wit and cunning may be what he is most known for, but it is the animals that give him his power, grounding him in a world that is both magical and real. There are stories told by the elders that speak of Maui's adventures with his animal companions. One such tale tells of a time when the sun was too quick, racing across the sky, and the earth was bathed in daylight far longer than it should have been. The people grew tired, their crops withered, and the night no longer offered them rest. In his cleverness, Maui sought to slow the sun, and it was the birds who helped him. With their swift wings, they carried him to the sun's lair, where he waited, hidden in the shadows. When the sun rose, Maui struck, catching it in his net and slowing its fiery race across the sky. The birds' wings beat in unison, as if they too were part of the spell that kept the sun at bay, their voices singing the praise of Maui's triumph. But Maui's relationship with his companions is not without its challenges. The animals, despite their loyalty to him, are not always willing to follow his lead. There are times when his trickery goes too far, when his ambition blinds him to the consequences of his actions. It is said that Maui once sought to capture the heart of the sun itself, to control its power, and in doing so, he angered the gods. His bird companions, ever faithful, tried to warn him, but Maui, with his boundless confidence, pressed on. In the end, his plans failed, and the consequences were felt not just by Maui, but by the very creatures who had followed him into battle. Even in his failure, however, Maui's bond with the animals remains unbroken. The birds still sing his name, their songs carrying across the sky, while the whales still swim alongside him in the depths. Maui's mistakes, like his triumphs, are woven into the stories of the world, lessons that are passed down from generation to generation. He is both a hero and a cautionary tale, a trickster whose heart is as wild as the world he inhabits. There are moments when Maui, alone and tired from his many adventures, looks to his companions and finds solace in their company. In the silence of the night, when the stars twinkle above, he listens to the call of the whales and the songs of the birds, and in that moment, he knows that no matter how far he may roam, he is never truly alone. The creatures of the earth, the sky, and the sea are with him, as they always have been, as they always will be. Maui's story is one of laughter and trickery, of adventure and mischief. But at its core, it is a story of connection, the bond between a man and the animals who share his world. In the end, it is not Maui's strength or his cleverness that makes him legendary, but his ability to see the magic in the world around him and to share that magic with the creatures who walk, fly, and swim beside him. They are not just his companions, they are his family, and together, they shape the world. The wind howled through the trees, carrying with it a scent of saltwater and adventure. Beneath the sweeping sky, a figure appeared, soaring effortlessly above the land. At first, it was just a shadow in the distance, a blur of motion against the clouds. But as it drew closer, the shape became unmistakable, a dog, wings outstretched, cutting through the air as if borne to the skies. The legend of Puebwa, the flying dog, was no longer a tale told by the elders, but a living, breathing creature soaring high above the earth. In the quiet islands of Micronesia, stories of Pugwa have been passed down for generations. A dog, unlike any other, gifted with the ability to fly. It is said that Pugwa's wings were not of feathers, but of something far more mystical, woven from the very threads of the heavens. This dog was not bound by the earth, nor by the laws of gravity that keep most creatures rooted to the ground. Pugwa could rise above the mountains, above the oceans, above the lives of those who would look up in wonder, never quite believing their eyes. Some say that Pugwa was once a simple dog, just like any other. A loyal companion, a creature who ran with the wind at his side and the earth beneath his paws. But there was something in Pugwa that set him apart from the other dogs. There was an undeniable yearning in his heart, a desire to reach higher, to see beyond the horizon, to touch the stars. And so, the gods, moved by his longing, bestowed upon him the gift of flight. With a flap of his wings, Pugwa ascended into the sky, and from that moment, the world below would never be the same. It's said that when Pugwa first took flight, the people below gasped in amazement, their mouths wide with astonishment. They had never seen anything like it before. The dog, with his wings unfurled, seemed to dance through the clouds, a blur of joy and freedom. He didn't simply fly, he soared, gliding effortlessly through the air, his spirit as wild and free as the wind itself. He was the embodiment of all the dreams that people held within their hearts, the desire to be free, to rise above the mundane, to touch something greater than themselves. But Pugwa's flight was not just a symbol of freedom. It was a reminder to the people that the earth, while beautiful and full of life, was not the only world that existed. The sky, too, held its own magic, its own mysteries, its own creatures. And Pugwa was a bridge between those two worlds. When he soared across the heavens, it wasn't just a spectacle, it was a connection, a reminder that there was more to life than what could be seen with the eyes. Sometimes, you had to look up, beyond the clouds, to find the beauty of the world. At times, when the storms would rise and the winds would howl, Pugwa would fly into the heart of the storm itself. The sky would darken, the thunder would roll, but Pugwa would press on, his wings cutting through the storm with unmatched determination. He was more than just a dog, he was a symbol of resilience, of strength in the face of adversity. To see him flying through the storm was to witness the triumph of the spirit over the harshness of life. It was as if the very storm itself was powerless against him. And yet, despite the might and majesty of Pugwa, there was a gentleness to him. For all his power, he never used it to harm. He never sought to prove his strength by conquering others. Instead, Pugwa used his wings to bring joy. He would often fly over villages, circling above with a grace that could only be described as divine, bringing peace to those who gazed up at him. The children would laugh and point, their eyes wide with wonder, while the elders would smile, remembering the days when such creatures were thought to be mere myths. The legends tell of a time when Pugwa flew to the highest mountain, to the peak where the clouds met the earth. There, he met the spirits of the wind and the sky, ancient beings who had watched over the earth long before humans had ever set foot on it. It was in that moment that Pugwa became more than just a dog, he became a guardian of the sky, a protector of the winds, the embodiment of all that was wild and untamed in the world. The spirits, in their wisdom, saw that Pugwa was not a creature of the earth alone, but one who belonged to the heavens as well. And so, they blessed him with eternal flight, a gift that would carry him across the world for as long as the winds would blow. But even Pugwa, with all his might and freedom, was not immune to the struggles of life. There were times when the winds would grow too strong, the storms too fierce, and even Pugwa would be tossed and turned by the forces beyond his control. Yet, he never gave up. He would soar higher, finding strength in the very storms that threatened to bring him down. His wings, though battered at times, would always carry him onward, always lifting him above the chaos, always guiding him back to the peace that awaited on the other side. For the people who watched Pugwa, his story was one of hope. It reminded them that no matter how turbulent the storms in their own lives might be, there was always the possibility of rising above it all. That no matter how grounded they might feel, there was always the chance to spread their wings and take flight, to reach for something greater than themselves. In that way, Pugwa became more than just a mythical creature. He became a symbol of possibility, a reminder that even the most unlikely of creatures could soar, could rise above the clouds, and could find their place among the stars. As the days passed and the winds carried him farther and farther, Pugwa became more than a legend. He became a spirit that lived on in the hearts of those who had witnessed his flight. To this day, the elders speak of him, and the children still look up, hoping to catch a glimpse of that wondrous dog soaring high above, a beacon of hope, of freedom, and of the boundless possibilities that lie just beyond the clouds. The air was thick with the scent of saltwater, and the sky above was a deep, endless blue. In the stillness of the moment, there was a stirring, a quiet hum, almost like a heartbeat, coming from the earth itself. It was said that the spirits of the ancestors could be felt in the very breeze that rustled through the trees. These spirits were not distant, unattainable beings. They were here, present, alive in the very creatures that roamed the land, the beasts that swam through the sea, and the birds that flew across the sky. The Achua beasts. These were no ordinary animals. To the people of Polynesia, they were more than just creatures of the earth. They were living embodiments of the ancestral spirits that had come before. The Achua beasts were animals blessed with a sacred connection to the past, guardians of traditions, and powerful symbols of the ancestors' enduring presence. Every swish of a tail, every call of a bird, every stir of the ocean carried with it the whispers of those who had lived before, their spirits woven into the fabric of nature itself. The Achua beasts were as varied as the islands of the Pacific. Some were majestic, their forms so grand that they seemed to belong to another world, larger than life, their eyes filled with the wisdom of ages. Others were small, yet no less powerful, their quiet movements carrying the weight of sacred knowledge. Each one was different, yet all shared the same divine connection. The turtle, with its slow, deliberate movements, was a symbol of endurance and wisdom, its shell a map of the universe itself. The whale, massive and graceful, was a guardian of the ocean, its deep song a call to the ancestors who dwelled beneath the waves. The shark, fierce and untamable, represented the strength and bravery of the warriors who had come before. But it was not just their physical presence that made the Achua beasts so important. It was the way they moved through the world, the way they carried with them the memories of the past. To encounter one of these animals was to feel the weight of history settle over you. It was to know that the spirits of those who had lived, loved, and fought were still with you, guiding you, protecting you. These creatures were the living connection to the ancestors, a bridge between the past and the present, between the world of the living and the world of the dead. In the darkened depths of the ocean, the shark would swim silently, its sleek body cutting through the water like a shadow. The people believed that the shark was not just a predator, but a protector, a guardian of the souls of the dead. It was said that when a person passed, their spirit would travel to the sea, and the shark would be there to guide them, ensuring they found their way safely to the afterlife. The shark's presence was a comfort, a reminder that death was not an end, but a continuation of the journey, a journey that was watched over by the ancestors themselves. On the land, the turtle moved with a quiet dignity, its ancient eyes reflecting the wisdom of centuries. The turtle was revered for its long life and steady pace, its connection to the earth as deep and unwavering as the roots of the trees. It was said that the turtle carried the world on its back, a reminder that the earth itself was a living, breathing entity, a sacred gift from the ancestors. To see a turtle was to be reminded of the importance of patience, of taking each step with care, and of honoring the land that had sustained the people for generations. The birds, too, played their part in the stories of the Achua beasts. The call of the owl, echoing through the night, was believed to be the voice of the ancestors, calling out to their descendants. The eagle, soaring high above the mountains, was seen as a messenger, carrying the words of the spirits from the heavens to the earth. The sight of an eagle in flight was a sign of hope, a reminder that the ancestors were watching, guiding, and protecting from above. But it was the creatures of the forest, the ones that moved quietly through the trees, that held a special place in the hearts of the people. These were the beings that walked closest to the earth, and their connection to the ancestors was most profound. The pig, for example, was a symbol of abundance, its tusks a reminder of the strength and tenacity of the warriors who had fought to protect the land. The dog, too, was sacred, its loyalty and courage reflected in the devotion of the people. The dog was often seen as a protector of the home, guarding against evil spirits and ensuring that the ancestors' blessings remained with the family. Each Achua beast, in its own way, carried the teachings of the ancestors, ensuring that the wisdom of the past was never forgotten. They were not just symbols of the divine, they were active participants in the lives of the people, guiding them, teaching them, and protecting them. The Achua beasts were not separate from the people, they were an integral part of their world, woven into the very fabric of existence. It was said that when a person felt lost, when they wandered too far from the path of the ancestors, it was the Achua beasts that would guide them back. A shark would appear on the horizon, its sleek body cutting through the waves, a reminder of the strength of the ancestors. A turtle would appear on the shore, its steady movements reminding the person to take things slowly, to find their way back to the earth. A bird would call out from the trees, its cry a reminder that the spirits were always near, always watching, always guiding. The Achua beasts were not just creatures of myth, they were real, living beings that embodied the very essence of Polynesian spirituality. They were reminders that the past was never truly gone, that the ancestors lived on in the animals, the land, and the sea. To see an Achua beast was to witness the living presence of the spirits, to feel their guidance, their protection, their love. And for those who truly understood the significance of these creatures, their presence was a constant source of comfort, a reminder that they were never alone, that the spirits of the ancestors would always be there to guide them, just as they had always guided the generations before. In the stillness of the ocean, a strange ripple spreads across the surface, like the brush of a hand through water. The calm of the sea shatters as a figure breaks through the waves, its dark, glistening form silhouetted against the fading light of the setting sun. A figure with sharp eyes, a body that seems half human, half fish, its very presence sends a chill down the spine. This is no ordinary sea creature. This is the Adaro, a malevolent being of the Solomon Islands, feared by sailors, whispered about in hushed tones. The ocean is vast, mysterious, and unforgiving, but what lies beneath is even more terrifying than the waters themselves. The Adaro, with its twisted, predatory nature, haunts the minds of those who dare to venture too far. Legends speak of these creatures as merman-like entities, their faces distorted with malice, their bodies built for speed and violence in the depths of the sea. Their eyes burn with fury, their fins slashing through the waves like weapons, poised to strike at anyone foolish enough to cross their path. It is said that the Adaro are not just creatures, they are the embodiment of the wrath of the ocean itself. Born of the deep, they are beings of chaos, creatures of the storm, and their very existence is a warning to all who sail the seas. The sea, which gives life, can also take it away. And the Adaro are the sea's answer when angered. Their shrieks are said to echo across the waves like the howling winds before a storm, sending sailors into a panic, their hearts pounding in terror. Some say the Adaro are the spirits of the dead, souls lost to the sea, filled with rage and longing for vengeance. It is believed that when a ship is sunk or a sailor is lost, the spirits of the fallen are reborn as Adaro, their human forms twisted by the sea into something monstrous. Their thirst for revenge drives them, and they hunt those who dare to sail through their waters with an unrelenting fury. No mercy, no escape. The ocean is their domain, and they reign over it with cruelty. The Adaro are often described as having the upper body of a man but the lower half of a fish, with sharp, jagged fins that allow them to move with deadly speed. Their skin is said to shimmer like the scales of a fish, reflecting the harsh light of the sun, but their faces are what haunt the stories. The face of an Adaro is a mask of rage, eyes wide and burning with fury, their mouth stretched in a perpetual snarl, showing teeth that gleam like knives. They are not creatures to be admired, they are creatures to be feared. In the quiet moments before a storm, when the sea is calm and the sky is clear, the Adaro's presence can still be felt. The waters stir unnaturally, as if something stirs beneath the surface. The wind picks up, and the air grows thick with tension. The sea whispers of their approach, and the hairs on the back of a sailor's neck stand on end. It is said that the Adaro can sense when a ship is close, and they will emerge from the depths to drag it into the abyss. Their malevolent nature is not limited to the sea. According to the stories, the Adaro have the power to possess people, to take control of their minds and bodies. Sailors who are unlucky enough to encounter one of these creatures may find themselves compelled to act against their will, their thoughts no longer their own. It's said that once an Adaro has chosen a victim, there is no escape. They will lure their prey into the ocean's depths, dragging them to their doom. There is no mercy, only the cold grip of the sea. But not all who encounter the Adaro fall victim to their wrath. Some, brave souls with hearts filled with courage, have managed to survive encounters with the creatures, escaping their clutches through sheer willpower or cunning. But those who do return from such encounters often speak of the madness that clings to them. The ocean's curse follows them, lingering in their minds long after they've escaped. The terror of the Adaro, once seen, is never truly gone. Despite the terror they bring, the Adaro are also a symbol. They are the embodiment of nature's wildness, the ocean's power, and its unpredictable temperament. The sea, after all, is not always kind. It is as much a force of destruction as it is one of life, and the Adaro are its instruments, reminding the people of the Solomon Islands of the thin line between life and death. To disrespect the sea, to ignore its dangers, is to invite the wrath of the Adaro. For the people of the Solomon Islands, the Adaro are not just a cautionary tale. They are a part of the ocean's ancient mythology, a creature woven into the fabric of the island's history. They represent the fears of the people, the dangers that lurk just below the surface. But they are also a reminder of the beauty and power of the sea, a power that must be respected. The Adaro may be creatures of darkness, but they are also creatures of the sea, a sea that holds life, mystery, and danger in equal measure. The stories of the Adaro have been passed down for generations, and they are as vivid today as they were when the first sailors ventured into the unknown waters. The legends are alive, carried on the waves, whispered by the wind. And in the quiet moments when the sea is calm, when the sun sets behind the horizon, one might still feel the stir of the Adaro beneath the surface, a reminder of the untamable power of the ocean and the creatures that rule it. The air in Vanuatu hangs thick with ancient stories, stories that twist like the very serpents revered by the people of these islands. Far from the bustling noise of cities, in the quiet of the jungles and the depths of sacred caves, there lies a presence so powerful, it commands both fear and awe. These are the serpent spirits of Vanuatu, guardians of fertility, rulers of the underworld, and protectors of life itself. At first glance, the winding paths of the jungle seem peaceful, but if you listen closely, you can hear the faint rustle of something moving just beyond the reach of your sight, an unsettling, slithering sound that sends a shiver down your spine. You look, and for a fleeting moment, the shape of something long and sinuous disappears into the brush, just out of reach. It's not just the movement of a creature, it feels like the very earth has shifted, as if an ancient power is watching you, waiting. Vanuatu's serpent spirits are not mere animals. They are the embodiment of nature's force, the very pulse of life and death. Revered and feared, these deities of the underworld hold sway over both the fertile soil and the shadowed realms below. They are serpents that coil through the earth, unseen but always present, their bodies entwined with the land's history, its mysteries, its struggles. The legends whisper of their ability to bring life to barren soil, to awaken the seeds buried deep within the earth and ensure that crops grow strong. But they also bring death, for they are the gatekeepers to the underworld, where souls are guided into eternity. It's said that these spirits can appear in many forms, from the smallest serpent to enormous, coiling shadows that stretch across the land. Their power is immense, so great that even the bravest of warriors tremble in their presence. The snake is a symbol of transformation, of cycles, and of the eternal flow of life. When one snake slithers into the earth, another emerges, and so the cycle continues, life rising from death, death feeding life. The serpent's very nature is a reminder that nothing in this world is ever truly gone, merely changed, transformed. But it's not just the physical form of these spirits that frightens the people, it is their connection to the very forces of nature that govern existence. The serpents of Vanuatu are seen as keepers of balance. They do not simply rule over the physical world, they govern the forces that shape human lives. When a serpent is disturbed, whether by the careless actions of a human or by the breaking of ancient taboos, the balance is tipped and chaos follows. Crops fail, storms ravage the land, and sickness spreads. The people believe that the serpent spirits are the ones who bring punishment as they seek to restore harmony, to remind the living that nature cannot be ignored. It's not all destruction, though. These spirits are also deities of creation. The fertility of the land depends on their mercy. When the serpent spirits are honored, when they are respected, the land flourishes and the people prosper. They are revered during sacred ceremonies, where offerings are made and prayers are spoken, asking for blessings upon the crops, the families, and the community. The dance of life and death, creation and destruction, is a constant rhythm, and the serpents are the keepers of this delicate balance. As the sun sets behind the jagged peaks of Vanuatu's volcanic islands, the sky darkens, and the air becomes heavy. The night brings with it the ancient feeling of something watching, an energy that stirs the soul and makes the heart beat faster. The shadows in the forest grow deeper, and in that quiet stillness, one might feel the presence of the serpent spirits. They slip silently through the night, winding their way through the island's ancient, sacred spaces. The people know to keep their eyes low, to walk with respect, and to never disturb what should not be disturbed. But those who dare to test the serpent spirits find themselves facing a wrath unlike any other. The stories tell of those who entered the forbidden caves, seeking treasure or knowledge, only to be met by the unrelenting gaze of a serpent spirit, its eyes glowing with the fury of 1,000 storms. These beings do not forget. The serpent's power is eternal, its reach infinite, for it is tied to the very essence of the world. To be touched by a serpent spirit is to be changed forever. Some say the encounter leaves a mark on the soul, an invisible scar, a trace of the serpentine power that lingers long after the experience is over. The connection to the underworld is not easily broken, and those who have come close to it may find themselves drawn back again and again, as if the spirits are calling them home. In Vanuatu, the serpent spirits remind the people of their place in the grand cycle of existence. They are neither gods to be worshipped blindly nor demons to be feared recklessly. They are simply a force, a reminder that life, in all its beauty and terror, is part of a larger system. The serpents show that the land, the people, and the very world around them are part of something much greater. Every crop, every child born, every storm that passes through, these are the hands of the serpent spirits at work, shaping the world with their endless coils. And yet, despite the reverence, there is a quiet sadness to the stories. For the serpent spirits, in all their power, also carry with them the knowledge of endings. They remind the people of the inevitable, of the time when all things must return to the earth. The serpents do not show mercy, nor do they give warnings. They are simply there, living and dying, changing and growing, just as the world does. But their presence, their cold, slithering grace, is a reminder that nothing lasts forever. Life flows into death, and death flows into life, and the serpents are the silent witnesses to it all. In Vanuatu, the serpent spirits live in the soil, the rivers, the caves, and the hearts of the people. Their presence is everywhere, whether seen or unseen, a constant reminder of the forces that shape the world. And when night falls, and the air grows thick with the whispers of the past, the serpents slither on, guardians of the land, rulers of the underworld, keepers of the balance. The sound of soft footsteps echoed through the dense, silent jungle, each step a careful whisper in the thick air of Papua New Guinea. The evening sun had already begun to dip behind the trees, casting long shadows over the land. But it wasn't just the usual murmur of wildlife that filled the space. There was something else, something that chilled the air and stirred the earth beneath your feet. The Tolai people have always believed in spirits, but on this night, they feared a certain presence more than others. You could hear them before you saw them. The soft rustling of leaves, the fluttering of wings, bird-like, yet not quite bird-like at all. The duck spirits were not creatures of the forest, nor were they mere figments of the imagination. They were something far more unsettling, their presence both familiar and foreign, like a forgotten dream that seems so real, yet when you try to grasp it, it slips through your fingers. They were the masked figures of the Tolai, appearing like ghostly birds, their bodies wrapped in long cloaks, their faces hidden behind intricately carved masks. Each year, the Duk spirits emerge, and with them, the heartbeat of an ancient, terrifying tradition. The people who have seen them speak in hushed tones, for the Duk are both protectors and avengers, spirits that bring justice but at a heavy, often terrifying, price. They are the embodiment of mystery, moving in the darkness between worlds, between life and death, between the human and the supernatural. But what do they really want? What do they guard? And what would happen if you found yourself face to face with one of these towering, bird-like beings? No one who has been through the rituals truly forgets the experience. You don't simply witness a Duk spirit, you feel it. It wraps around you like a shroud, filling the air with something darker, heavier than night itself. And as they march through the shadows, their eyes hidden behind their masks, you can almost sense that they are not just spirits, but something more ancient, more primal. The Duk are not just symbols, they are alive with power. Those who are chosen to wear the masks are believed to become conduits of the spirit world. When a man dons the Duk mask, he is no longer himself, he is a vessel for something greater, something older. The transformation is complete, and when he moves among the people, he walks with the authority of the ancestors. He is the enforcer of laws, the voice of the divine. The sight of a Duk spirit can be terrifying. Their bodies are cloaked in dark robes, their masks shaped like a bird's head, with long, pointed beaks and wide, hollow eyes. They appear in groups, their movements synchronizing in eerie silence as they glide through the village. The villagers say that when the Duk spirits arrive, they are not there just to observe, they are there to pass judgment. Their presence can mean the correction of wrongs, but it also means punishment for those who have strayed too far from the ancient laws. The masked figures speak in riddles and sing strange songs, chanting in the language of the spirits. They are the guardians of the old ways, the keepers of balance. For those who are wronged, the Duk can be a terrifying sight. It's said that the spirits have the power to curse the guilty, to bring them misfortune, sickness, or worse. But they also have the ability to heal, to bring justice to those who have suffered. There's a strange balance in their power, an uneasy peace between their wrath and their mercy. But it's the masks, the eerie masks that the Duk wear, that hold the most power. They are not just pieces of wood, painted with intricate designs. They are vessels, holding the essence of the spirit world itself. The faces of the masks are twisted, grotesque, sometimes beautiful, but always unsettling. Some say the masks contain the souls of long-dead ancestors, their eyes staring out into the world, forever watching, forever judging. The eyes of a Duk mask can seem to follow you, no matter where you go. It's as if the spirits are always near, just behind the veil of the mask, waiting for you to slip up, waiting for you to make a mistake. And what happens when the Duk spirits march through the village, calling out for judgment? The atmosphere changes. The wind picks up, the trees begin to whisper, and the people hold their breath. Even those who have not been directly chosen to face the Duk feel the weight of their presence. The spirits do not speak openly about their judgments, they do not make their decisions known until the time is right. Those who have wronged the community live in constant fear, watching the shadows, waiting for the sound of the footsteps that signal the arrival of the Duk. Yet, the Duk spirits are not merely creatures of fear and punishment. In some ways, they represent something else, an ancient connection to the earth, to the cycles of life and death that have always been part of the world. They are creatures of the night, yes, but also creatures of renewal. Through them, the balance is maintained. And in a way, the people of the Tolai believe that by keeping the Duk traditions alive, they are keeping the very soul of their culture intact. Every ritual involving the Duk is a reminder of the eternal connection between the people and the land. When the spirits come, they remind the villagers of their sacred responsibility to each other and to the earth. They remind them of the old laws, the deep wisdom that has been passed down through generations. And as the Duk spirits move through the village, their cloaks trailing behind them like dark wings, the people know that they are not just watching, they are witnessing something far beyond the realm of human understanding. As the night deepens and the shadows stretch longer, the Duk spirits continue their quiet march. Their bird-like figures disappear into the forest, fading away into the darkness. But even as they vanish from sight, their presence lingers, filling the air with a strange weight, as if the land itself holds its breath. The mysteries of the duck remain, ancient and untouchable, a silent reminder that there is much in this world that can never be fully understood. In the dense, humid forests where the shadows stretch endlessly, there is a tale whispered among the people, a story that makes the air feel heavier and the wind seem to pause. It's the tale of the flying fox woman, a creature both beautiful and terrifying, a shapeshifter who moves seamlessly between the world of humans and the dark, mysterious realm of bats. It's said that when the sun dips low and the sky burns with hues of red and purple, you might catch a glimpse of her. She is seen only in the moments when the world is transitioning between day and night, when the air grows thick with anticipation and the world seems to hold its breath. In those fleeting moments, you might see a woman standing alone, her hair flowing like the night itself, but if you look too closely, the truth will become clear: the woman is not entirely human. Her fingers taper into claws, her skin ripples like the wings of a bat, and before you know it, she is gone, vanished into the night sky, leaving behind only a soft echo of wings. The flying fox woman is not bound by the limitations of mere mortals. She has the power to shift her form at will, slipping between the human and the bat, moving through the world unseen by most. But she is not a creature of darkness without purpose. Her transformation is a reflection of something much deeper, something ancient and powerful. Her presence marks the thin line between two worlds, two realities. She exists on the edge of both, a bridge between the known and the unknown, the human and the supernatural. When the flying fox woman appears, it's never a simple moment. There is an electric charge in the air, a sense that something otherworldly is unfolding. In the quiet of the forest, when all the animals have stopped moving and even the wind holds its breath, you might hear the soft flapping of wings. It's subtle at first, a whisper, but then it grows louder. The sound comes closer, as if something is descending from the darkening sky. That's when you know she is near. Her wings are vast, stretching wide like the night itself, bat-like in their enormity, their blackness blending perfectly with the shadows around her. Her eyes, when they meet yours, are a strange combination of human and animal, gleaming with an ancient wisdom that makes your heart beat faster. You can't explain why, but in her presence, there's both fear and wonder, as if you are standing before something that has seen the beginning of time and knows things that are beyond your understanding. There are stories that say the flying fox woman comes in search of something. Some believe she is a protector, a guardian who watches over the forests and the creatures within them. She is said to bring balance to the natural world, ensuring that the delicate ecosystems are preserved and respected. Others whisper that she is a spirit of vengeance, that she seeks out those who have harmed the land, those who have taken too much from the earth. For her, there is no forgiveness, only the cold, sweeping justice of the night. But there are also those who speak of her with more reverence, as though she is a figure of mystery and transformation, embodying both the beauty and the terror of the natural world. Her ability to shift between the human and the bat is a symbol of the cycles of life and death, of the endless movement between light and dark. In many ways, the flying fox woman is a reminder that nothing is ever fixed, that change is constant, and that the boundaries between the known and the unknown are never as solid as they may seem. The flying fox woman is often seen near the edge of the village, standing silently under the trees or hovering just above the ground, her wings barely stirring the air. Her presence is a warning, a reminder that the forces of nature are always in motion, that the earth is alive, and that everything has its place within the great web of existence. And though she may seem to disappear into the night, the people know that she is always watching, always waiting, ever present in the spaces between the worlds. But there are other stories, darker ones, of those who have crossed paths with the flying fox woman and never returned. It's said that once you see her, you are marked, and she will follow you, watching from the shadows, her eyes ever present, her wings always hovering just out of sight. For some, the fear of being pursued by her becomes unbearable, the thought of her wings trailing behind them in the dark causing them to lose sleep, to lose their sense of peace. And while many believe that the flying fox woman seeks only to protect the forest, there are those who fear her wrath, the sense that she is always near, ready to swoop down from the skies and strike when least expected. In the stillness of the night, when the moon is high and the stars seem to whisper secrets to one another, the sound of wings is the only thing that can be heard. It is the mark of the flying fox woman, a reminder that the world is never as simple as it seems. There is always something beyond the veil of the visible world, something that waits in the darkness, just out of reach, watching and waiting. For those who have encountered her, the experience is never forgotten. They speak of her with a mixture of awe and fear, for there is something in her gaze that lingers long after she is gone. It is as though she sees through you, into something deeper and more primal, and in her eyes, you are nothing more than a fleeting moment in the endless cycle of life and death. But it is also said that there is something else in her gaze, something softer, a hint of compassion for the world she watches over. She is not simply a creature of darkness, she is a part of the earth itself, forever bound to the night, forever shifting between worlds, forever watching over the fragile balance of nature. And as the night falls and the shadows stretch longer, you might feel the stir of wings, a soft whisper in the wind, and know that she is near, the flying fox woman, the shapeshifter who moves between the human and the bad, guarding the boundaries of the known and the unknown, ever present, ever watching. The sea, vast and unending, stretches out before the islands of Melanesia like a living thing, breathing, shifting, sometimes gentle, but more often than not, powerful and unpredictable. There's a quiet terror that lingers beneath its surface, a darkness that calls to those who sail its waters. To the people of Melanesia, the ocean is not just a body of water, it is a realm of mystery, teeming with creatures that exist only in whispers, legends, and the deep recesses of ancient stories. Among them are the sea monsters, beasts so terrifying that even the bravest sailors pause when their names are spoken. For as long as anyone can remember, the sea monsters have been a part of the culture. They are the shadows lurking in the waves, the unseen giants that rise from the depths with only the slightest warning. The stories of these monsters are told in hushed tones, with the kind of reverence that only something both terrifying and sacred can inspire. They are not just creatures to be feared, they are symbols, woven into the fabric of daily life, and their influence reaches far beyond the waters they inhabit. Imagine, if you will, the sound of a canoe cutting through the waves, the rhythmic motion of paddles carving a path through the sea. The air is thick with the scent of salt and the promise of discovery, yet there's something else hanging in the air, a sensation, a feeling that there is more to the sea than meets the eye. As the boat drifts further from the safety of the shore, you can't shake the feeling that something is watching. Something beneath the water, something ancient and powerful, waiting. That's when the stories flood back, stories of the creatures that roam the ocean floor, their forms monstrous and unfathomable. Sea serpents, leviathans, and beasts so large that they are said to cause the very ocean to tremble. These monsters are not merely tales, they are the ancestors' warnings, the stories that are passed down from generation to generation. One such beast is the Nyugni, a sea serpent that coils through the water like a shadow, striking fear into the hearts of anyone who ventures too far into the deep. With eyes that glimmer like pearls and scales that shimmer in the moonlight, it is said to rise from the water in sudden, terrifying swells. The Nyugni doesn't just strike at random, it is a force of nature, a reminder that the sea is not to be trifled with. Sailors speak of feeling its presence before they see it, an inexplicable shift in the current, a deep rumble beneath the water, and then the terrifying rise of its massive form. There's a story about a group of fishermen who once sailed across the open water, unaware of the beast's approach. As they paddled along, their hearts filled with pride and excitement, the sea suddenly turned dark, the waters churning with violent force. They looked behind them, only to see the towering shape of the Nyugni emerging from the depths. Its great, serpentine body curled around their canoe, the ocean roaring as the monster rose higher and higher, its eyes locked onto them. The fishermen, frozen in fear, waited for the inevitable. But instead of attacking, the creature simply stared, its gaze penetrating and unyielding. It was as if the beast was testing them, reminding them of their place in the world, a world ruled by the sea and its ancient guardians. But the Nyugni is not alone. There are others, each with their own domain beneath the waves. In some areas, the sea monsters are believed to be guardians of the islands themselves, watching over the people who live upon them. These creatures are as much a part of the sea as the waves and the tides. They are not evil, but they are not to be disrespected either. The sea is their realm, and to ignore that is to invite misfortune. In the Melanesian islands, these creatures shape the way people navigate the waters. The very presence of these monsters reminds the islanders of their relationship with the sea, a relationship based on respect, fear, and awe. Sailors know that they must honor the water, keep their rituals, and understand the ancient laws of the sea if they hope to travel its vast stretches. Every sail, every paddle, every fishing expedition carries the weight of generations of stories. The sea monsters are never far from their minds, and their legends are woven into the fabric of every journey. There are other tales of sea monsters that take on even darker forms, beasts that do not just strike at sailors, but wreak havoc on entire villages. Some are said to be the spirits of the sea, angry and vengeful, who punish those who have forgotten the old ways. These creatures are the nightmares that rise from the deep in a storm, their massive bodies swallowing entire canoes, their roars echoing across the water like thunder. They come not just as beasts, but as omens, warnings from a world that is older and more powerful than the human one. One of the more chilling stories speaks of the Matata, a huge, shadowy figure that lurks near the coast. It is said that when the moon is full and the tide is high, the Matata comes close to the shore, dragging its heavy body through the shallow water. Its enormous, clawed hands scrape across the seafloor, and its eyes gleam with a malevolent glow. Some say that the Matata is searching for lost souls, others believe it is drawn to the sound of human voices. But one thing is certain, when it is near, all life on the shore becomes still. No one dares to speak, no one dares to move, for to draw attention to oneself is to invite disaster. There's another story, quieter but no less eerie, that speaks of the way these sea monsters influence the culture of Melanesia. Sailors and fishermen wear talismans and charms that are said to protect them from the creatures of the deep. They offer prayers to the sea spirits before setting sail, asking for safe passage, and giving thanks for the fish they catch. These rituals are not just superstition, they are a bond between the people and the sea, a way to navigate the unknown with reverence and caution. And even beyond the physical realm, these creatures have left their mark on the island's art, stories, and beliefs. The shapes of sea monsters can be found in the intricate carvings on wooden masks, in the patterns of tattoos that cover the bodies of warriors, and the songs sung by the elders around the fire. These monsters are a part of the islands, their influence felt in every wave, every gust of wind. The sea monsters of Melanesia are not just creatures of myth. They are symbols of the power and mystery of the ocean, of the fine line between life and death that sailors walk every time they set out to sea. They are reminders that the ocean, like the earth itself, is ancient, vast, and untamable. And that no matter how far we travel, how much we learn, there will always be something lurking just beneath the surface, waiting to remind us of our place in the world. The air grows heavy as you step into the jungle, a weight you can't quite explain pressing against your chest. The towering trees form a canopy so thick that sunlight barely filters through, casting everything in a dim, green glow. The sounds are alive with birds calling, leaves rustling, insects buzzing, but underneath it all, there is a strange silence. A feeling that something is watching. Not a predator or a curious animal, but something unseen, something ancient. The kind of presence that raises the hair on your arms and quickens your breath. This is no ordinary forest. It is sacred ground, and its guardians are all around. The jungle is alive, and not just in the way you expect. Here, every tree, every vine, every shadow seems to hold a secret. The spirit guardians are said to dwell in these groves, protectors of the land and its untamed beauty. But they are more than just guardians. They are watchers, judges, forces of balance. They can bless those who respect the jungle's rules or curse those who dare to break them. Stories about these entities are told with both awe and fear. Some speak of shimmering figures that appear like mists between the trees, their shapes barely solid, their movements as fluid as the wind. Others describe glowing eyes that pierce through the darkness, watching but never blinking. These spirits are said to have the power to heal or harm, to grant safe passage or lead intruders into eternal confusion. There's a tale of a hunter who ventured into a sacred grove without asking permission. He had heard the warnings from the elders, but he laughed them off, dismissing their words as mere superstition. The hunt was good at first, the jungle seemingly offering up its bounty to him. But as he prepared to leave, the forest changed. The once familiar paths twisted and turned in impossible ways. The towering trees seemed to close in around him, their roots rising like walls to block his way. Hours turned into days, and no matter how far he walked, he always found himself back in the same clearing. It was then he realized he was not alone. From the shadows, a figure emerged, its form neither fully human nor entirely spirit. It said nothing, but its presence spoke volumes. The hunter fell to his knees, begging for forgiveness, and only then did the path home reveal itself. Not all encounters are so merciful. There are whispers of those who entered the groves with greed in their hearts, seeking to exploit the jungle's riches without reverence. For them, the spirits are not protectors but punishers. They strike with sickness that no medicine can cure, with storms that tear through the forest without warning, with visions that haunt the mind until sanity slips away. But it's not only punishment that the spirit guardians are known for. There are tales of travelers lost in the jungle, on the brink of despair, who were saved by these unseen entities. A guiding light appearing through the trees, a sudden clearing where none existed before, a gentle voice that led them to safety. These stories speak of a deep connection between the spirits and those who walk the jungle with respect and humility. It's said that if your heart is pure and your intentions good, the spirits will recognize you as a friend. The jungle itself seems to breathe with their presence. When the wind rustles through the leaves, it carries whispers that sound almost like words. The sunlight that breaks through the canopy can form patterns that resemble faces or symbols. And in the stillness of the night, the air is thick with a feeling that goes beyond fear. It is a reverence, a recognition that you are in a place where the veil between worlds is thin. One of the most haunting tales speaks of a grove so sacred that even the villagers nearby refuse to enter. They say the spirits there are ancient, older than the trees themselves, and fiercely protective of their domain. A young woman, curious and bold, decided to step into the grove one fateful evening, drawn by stories of its beauty. As she walked, she felt a presence all around her, 1,000 unseen eyes watching her every move. She tried to speak, to offer her respect, but her voice faltered. It was then that she saw them, figures made of light and shadow, their forms shifting like smoke. They surrounded her, their faces unreadable, their silence deafening. They didn't harm her, but they didn't let her leave. For 3 days and nights, she wandered the grove, her cries unheard by anyone outside. When she finally emerged, her hair had turned white, her voice was gone, and her eyes held a look of knowledge so profound it frightened even the elders. The spirit guardians are not merely protectors of the jungle, they are its essence. They embody its beauty and its danger, its life and its death. To see them, even for a moment, is to understand something about the world that cannot be put into words. They are reminders of the sacredness of nature, of the balance that must be maintained. The people who live near these groves know that the jungle is not just a place. It is a living, breathing entity, and the spirit guardians are its heart. They leave offerings at the edge of the forest, flowers, fruit, small carvings, to show their respect. They teach their children the stories, not to frighten them, but to instill a sense of wonder and reverence. For they know that the jungle gives life, but it can also take it away. There's a quiet power in these tales, a lesson that echoes beyond the trees. It's about humility, about understanding that we are not the masters of this world, but a part of it. The spirit guardians remind us of this in their own way, whether through blessings or curses. They are not good or evil. They simply are. And their presence lingers, in the rustle of leaves, in the shadows that dance between the trees, in the stillness that comes just before the storm. To walk into the jungle is to step into their domain, a place where the line between the seen and unseen blurs. It is a place of wonder, of terror, of beauty beyond imagination. And if you listen closely, you might just hear them, the spirit guardians, watching, waiting, reminding you that you are never truly alone. The air over Nan Madol feels charged, as though the ancient ruins themselves breathe with a life that defies time. Built atop coral reefs, the stones, so massive and so precisely placed, whisper of an impossible past. But it's not just the ruins that grip the imagination. It's what watches over them, the unseen yet deeply felt guardians who linger, bound to this place in ways no human truly understands. Visitors often speak of a strange sensation as they approach the ruins, a subtle shift in the atmosphere that sends chills rippling down their spines. It's not fear, exactly, but a sense of being observed, weighed, and perhaps even judged. The locals warn against staying after nightfall, their voices filled with reverence and a touch of fear. They're still there, they say, their eyes distant. The guardians never left. There are countless stories of those who ignored the warnings, drawn by curiosity or arrogance. One speaks of a treasure hunter who arrived with grand ambitions, convinced he could uncover the secrets of Nan Madol. He dismissed the tales of guardians as mere folklore, nothing more than superstition meant to keep outsiders at bay. He set up camp among the ruins, his tools echoing through the quiet night as he worked to pry open what he believed was a hidden chamber. But then, the noises began. It started with whispers, soft and indistinct, as though carried by the wind. He paused, his heart pounding, but when he looked around, there was nothing, just the ruins and the endless night. Shaking his head, he returned to his work, but the whispers grew louder, more insistent. They weren't words he could understand, but they were not of this world. A shadow moved in the corner of his vision, too quick to follow. The air grew colder, heavy with an unspoken warning. By morning, he was gone, leaving his tools scattered and his tent torn as though in haste. Locals found him days later, wandering aimlessly, his eyes wide with terror and his lips muttering incoherently about creatures with glowing eyes and forms that shifted like smoke. Not all encounters are so dramatic, but they are no less chilling. Fishermen have spoken of eerie lights glowing beneath the waters around the ruins, moving in ways no natural creature could. They claim the lights pulse and shift, as if alive, as if watching. Others tell of strange cries that echo across the stones, mournful and otherworldly, piercing the silence of the night. The guardians of Nan Madol are not easily described. Some say they take the form of shadowy figures, tall and imposing, their presence more felt than seen. Others believe they are creatures of the sea, serpentine beings with scales that shimmer like moonlight on water. A few speak of winged beasts that rise from the ruins, their forms black against the starry sky, their cries chilling enough to freeze the blood. One particularly haunting tale comes from a group of explorers who ventured into the ruins during a particularly dark and stormy evening. They were seasoned travelers, skeptical of local legends, and they dismissed the villagers' warnings with laughter. But as they moved deeper into the ruins, the laughter faded. The storm seemed to grow fiercer with every step they took, the wind howling like a living thing. One of them, a young man known for his bravado, stopped suddenly, his face pale. "Do you hear that?" he whispered. The others strained their ears, and then they heard it, a low, guttural growl that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Panic set in as the growls grew louder, joined by what sounded like footsteps, heavy and deliberate, echoing through the ruins. They turned to run, but the path they had taken seemed to twist and shift, the familiar landmarks disappearing into the darkness. One by one, they felt an overwhelming pressure, as though unseen hands were holding them in place. When they were finally able to move, they stumbled blindly back to their boat, their faces pale and their breaths ragged. To this day, none of them will speak of what they saw that night. Yet, for all the fear they inspire, the guardians are not always malevolent. Some believe they are protectors, bound to Nan Madol by a duty as ancient as the stones themselves. There are stories of people who approached the ruins with reverence, leaving offerings of flowers or food, who spoke softly to the unseen forces as they walked among the stones. These visitors often describe a feeling of peace, as though the guardians recognized their respect and allowed them safe passage. The ruins themselves seem to reflect the presence of these entities. The stones, dark and moss-covered, hold an unyielding silence that feels alive. The canals that wind through Nan Madol are eerily still, their waters black and reflective, as if they too are watching. Even the birds and insects seem to avoid the ruins, their absence adding to the haunting stillness. Perhaps the most mysterious aspect of the Guardians is their connection to the builders of Nan Madol. Legend speaks of powerful sorcerers who raised the city with the help of supernatural beings, their knowledge and strength far beyond what mortals could achieve. Some believe the Guardians are the remnants of these beings, bound to the ruins by an unbroken pact. Others think they are the spirits of the builders themselves, determined to protect their legacy from those who would disturb it. Whatever their origin, the Guardians of Nan Madol are a force to be reckoned with. They embody the ruins' power and mystery, their presence a reminder that some places are not meant to be fully understood. They are a warning, a promise, a question that lingers in the heavy air. To stand among the stones of Nan Madol is to feel the weight of their gaze, to sense the ancient power that flows through the ruins. It is a place where the line between the past and the present blurs, where the veil between the seen and unseen is paper-thin. And as you leave, their presence lingers, following you like a shadow, a whisper, a memory of a place where time itself holds its breath. The ocean at twilight is a hypnotic expanse. Waves roll gently under the soft blush of the fading sun, the horizon glowing as if the heavens themselves are aflame. It's a scene of peace, of eternity. But beneath the surface, beyond the soothing rhythm of the tide, lies a world that is anything but tranquil, a world where shadows twist into shapes of unimaginable beauty and terror, where voices beckon with promises they never intend to keep. The sailors of the Marshall Islands know this better than anyone. Their stories are carried by the wind, whispered under the glow of lanterns as night descends, cautionary tales etched into the marrow of their bones. These tales speak of creatures so mesmerizing, so otherworldly, that they could compel even the most steadfast among them to abandon ship and plunge headlong into the waves, their cries swallowed by the vast and different sea. It starts with a song. Gentle at first, like a melody born of the waves themselves, it drifts over the water, lilting and sweet. The men aboard hear it, though none dare admit it at first. It seeps into their minds, a haunting echo that pulls on their deepest desires. The psalm doesn't belong to the world of mortals, it is the call of the sirens, their voices woven with magic, their intentions cloaked in treachery. The sirens of the Marshall Islands are unlike any other. They are not merely temptresses of legend, they are entities of shifting form, their beauty as fluid as the tides. To one man, they might appear as a long-lost love, eyes brimming with unshed tears. To another, they could take the guise of an ethereal goddess, radiant and untouchable. Yet, for all their allure, their power lies in their song, a melody that dances between longing and despair, hope and ruin. Fishermen have spoken of nights when the sea seemed unnaturally still, the air thick with an unplaceable tension. It was on such nights that the sirens made themselves known. Their song would ripple across the water, impossibly soft yet undeniably present, filling every crevice of the ship and every corner of the sailors' minds. It wasn't a sound that could be resisted. It was a compulsion, a spell, an unspoken promise of something just out of reach. There's a tale of a captain who prided himself on his strength of will, a man who claimed he feared no storm or shadow. One fateful evening, as his ship drifted under a moonless sky, the song came. At first, he scoffed, laughing at his crew's unease. But as the hours wore on, his bravado began to crack. The song seemed to grow louder, clearer, until it was as if the sirens were whispering directly into his ear. By dawn, the crew found him standing at the edge of the ship, his gaze fixed on the water as tears streamed down his face. "She's waiting for me," he murmured, before stepping into the sea. He was never seen again. But not all who encounter the sirens succumb. There are those who fight, who cling to reality with every ounce of strength they possess. They describe the sirens not as beautiful, but as terrifying. Beneath the illusion of grace and charm lies something far darker. Their eyes, when not veiled in enchantment, are cold and predatory, their forms shifting between human and something monstrous. The water around them churns with an unnatural energy, as if it too is under their spell. One sailor who survived an encounter with the sirens spoke of their anger when he resisted their call. "They screamed," he said, his voice trembling with the memory. "It was like the ocean itself was screaming. Their faces twisted, and for a moment, I saw what they really were, something ancient, something cruel." He described how the waters seemed to rise against him, how the very air seemed to conspire to pull him from the safety of his ship. Only by clinging to the mast and reciting prayers he barely remembered did he manage to endure the night. Even so, he admitted that the siren song lingered in his mind for weeks afterward, a haunting echo that made sleep impossible. The sirens' power lies not just in their ability to enchant, but in their understanding of human weakness. They prey on loneliness, on grief, on the yearning for something more. To those adrift at sea, far from home and loved ones, their song is a lifeline, a balm for the ache of separation. But it is a lie, a snare hidden beneath a veil of beauty. And once caught, there is no escape. There are old rituals meant to ward off the sirens, ancient chants and offerings cast into the sea. Some sailors carry talismans blessed by village shamans, believing them to hold the power to repel the creatures. Yet even with such protections, the fear remains. The sirens are cunning, and their determination is unmatched. They are the embodiment of the sea's dual nature, captivating yet deadly, a force that gives life and takes it away in equal measure. The elders speak of the sirens not with anger, but with a kind of resigned respect. They are what they are, they say. They do not hate us, nor do they love us. They are the sea, and the sea is them. It is a truth that hangs heavy in the hearts of those who make their living on the water, a reminder that the ocean, for all its beauty, is a place of endless danger. For the sailors of the Marshall Islands, the sirens are more than a myth, they are a reality, a force to be reckoned with, a presence that looms over every voyage. They are the song that haunts the waves, the shadow that dances on the water, the voice that whispers of promises too sweet to resist. And for those who hear their call, the line between life and death is as thin as a single note of their melody, echoing endlessly over the endless sea. The ocean sparkled under the midday sun, its surface a dance of light and movement, endless and alive. Somewhere beyond the horizon, a massive shape glided silently, ancient and deliberate. It moved with a grace that belied its size, its shell a mosaic of time itself, etched with patterns that seemed to tell stories, secrets older than any spoken word. To the people of Micronesia, this was not just a sea turtle. This was something more, something sacred. For generations, the turtle spirits have been revered as more than just creatures of the sea. They are protectors, messengers, and symbols of life's delicate balance. To encounter one is to step into a world where time slows, where every ripple and shadow carries meaning. Fishermen speak of moments when their nets seemed destined to fail, only for a turtle to appear, circling their boat like a silent guardian. To the untrained eye, it might seem coincidental. But for those who know, it's a blessing, a reminder that the ocean itself is watching, guiding. There is a story passed down from island to island, its words soft and careful, as if spoken too loudly it might lose its power. It tells of a boy, no older than 12, who defied tradition and set out to fish alone. The sea that day was calm, the kind of calm that feels unnatural, as if the world is holding its breath. Hours passed, and the boy's line remained slack, the water below him still and empty. As the sun dipped lower, casting the waves in shades of gold and crimson, he began to feel fear creep in. But just as despair threatened to overtake him, a shadow appeared beneath his canoe. It was immense, larger than anything he had ever seen, moving with a slowness that seemed deliberate, almost calculated. A turtle, its shell gleaming like polished stone, surfaced beside him. The boy froze, his breath caught in his chest. The turtle looked at him, not with the blank stare of an animal, but with an intelligence that pierced through his very soul. Without warning, it began to move, its path unmistakable. It wanted him to follow. The boy, driven by a mix of fear and awe, obeyed. It led him to a place where the sea seemed to shimmer differently, where fish swarmed in abundance. He cast his line, and within moments, he caught more than he ever had before. When he returned to the village, the elders listened to his tale with solemn expressions. "You were chosen," they said. The turtle spirit has shown you favor." From that day on, the boy was treated with a quiet reverence, as if he had been marked by something beyond understanding. But not all encounters with the turtle spirits are gentle. There are whispers of those who ignored the unspoken rules, who dared to harm a turtle out of greed or desperation. The consequences were swift and merciless. Boats capsized without warning, storms materialized from clear skies, and families were plagued by misfortune. To harm a turtle was to upset the balance, to invite the wrath of forces far greater than any human. One tale, spoken only in hushed tones, tells of a hunter who captured a turtle despite the warnings of his elders. He brought it to shore, boasting of his catch. That night, as he slept, he was tormented by dreams of the sea, waves rising to swallow him, voices calling his name in anger. When he awoke, his house was filled with water, though the ocean lay miles away. The turtle was gone, and so was his peace. He spent the rest of his days wandering the shoreline, seeking forgiveness that never came. For the people of Micronesia, turtles are more than just symbols, they are bridges between worlds. Their movements are said to carry messages from the gods, their migrations a reflection of the ocean's own heartbeat. It's no coincidence that the patterns on their shells resemble maps not of land, but of spirit, of life's interconnectedness. To trace those patterns with your fingers is to feel the pulse of the earth, the rhythm of tides and stars. Ceremonies honoring the turtle spirits are moments of profound beauty. Villagers gather under the light of a full moon, their chants rising and falling like waves. Offerings are placed in the water, flowers, fruits, carvings shaped like turtles. The air is thick with reverence, every gesture deliberate, every word heavy with meaning. It's said that on these nights, the turtles come closer to shore, their heads breaking the surface as if to listen, to acknowledge the respect being shown. For the children, the stories of the turtle spirits are their first lessons in humility and gratitude. They learn that the sea is not just a resource, but a living entity, and that the turtles are its keepers. They are taught to watch for signs, a turtle swimming alongside their boat, a glimpse of its shadow beneath the waves. These are moments to be cherished, signs that they are being watched over. But as the modern world encroaches, these stories face the threat of being forgotten. The turtles, once abundant, are now at risk, their numbers dwindling as the ocean itself changes. The elders speak with a quiet urgency, their voices tinged with sorrow. If the turtles disappear, they say, so too will the spirits. And when the spirits are gone, what will become of us? Yet, there is hope. Across the islands, efforts are being made to protect the turtles, to ensure that their legacy endures. Sanctuaries have been established, laws put in place to safeguard their nesting grounds. But more than that, the stories are being told again, shared with a new generation. For it is in these stories that the turtles truly live, in the words that carry their spirit, in the belief that they are more than just creatures of the sea. To see a turtle gliding through the water is to witness grace incarnate. It is to be reminded of life's fragility and resilience, its beauty and mystery. And for those who believe, it is to feel the presence of something far greater, something eternal. The turtle spirits are not just guardians of the sea, they are guardians of the soul, of the connection between all living things. And as long as their stories are told, they will never truly be gone. The forest was alive with the rustle of leaves, the hum of unseen insects, and the distant cries of creatures hidden in the shadows. Yet, all fell silent when the call of the luta bird echoed through the canopy. It wasn't just a sound, it was a feeling, a ripple that coursed through the air, causing even the bravest of hearts to falter. The bird's cry was hauntingly beautiful, a melody laced with both sorrow and warning, as if it carried the weight of worlds unseen. The luta bird is no ordinary creature. To glimpse it is rare, to hear its call is rarer still. Its feathers shimmer with an iridescence that defies nature, shifting colors in the faintest light as though the essence of dawn and dusk have been woven into its form. But what sets it apart is not its beauty, it is its gift, or perhaps its curse. The bird is said to possess prophetic powers, its appearances and cries foretelling events yet to come. There is a story, told in hushed tones, of a woman who once heard the call of the luta bird. She was alone, walking the narrow path that snaked through the forest, her basket heavy with wild fruits. As the bird's song pierced the stillness, she froze, her breath caught in her throat. The melody was unlike anything she had ever heard, each note a thread pulling at the fabric of her soul. She looked up, and there it was, perched on a branch as if it had been waiting for her all along. The bird's gaze met hers, its eyes impossibly deep, shimmering with a knowing that made her feel both seen and stripped bare. It sang once more, and in that moment, she understood. The sound painted images in her mind, her village consumed by flames, the cries of her neighbors mingling with the crackle of fire. She dropped her basket and ran, her feet pounding the earth as though chased by the vision itself. When she reached the village, she screamed for the others to leave, to flee before it was too late. At first, they dismissed her as delirious, her words the ramblings of a woman lost in the woods for too long. But then they heard it, the faint, mournful cry of the luda-luda bird. It came from somewhere deep within the forest, growing louder, sharper, until it seemed to fill the air around them. The villagers hesitated no longer. They grabbed what they could carry and ran, leaving behind their homes, their lives. Hours later, as they stood on a distant hill watching the flames devour everything they had ever known, the woman wept, not for the loss, but for the gift of the bird's warning. Without it, they would have been lost too. The luda-luda bird had saved them, though its song now lingered in her mind like an echo she could not shake. But the bird's prophecies are not always so merciful. There are tales of those who ignored its warning, brushing it off as mere superstition. A young man once heard the bird's cry while fishing near the river. He saw it circling above, its iridescent feathers catching the sunlight. To him, it was a curiosity, nothing more. He laughed, dismissing the old stories his grandmother had told him about the bird's powers. That night, as he lay in his hammock, the wind shifted. A storm came without warning, fierce and unrelenting, the river swelling beyond its banks. By morning, his village was gone, swept away in a torrent of water and debris. The young man survived, clinging to the branch of a tree, but the guilt of his disbelief weighed heavier than any flood. He spoke of the bird until his dying day, warning others never to ignore its call. The luda-luda bird does not choose lightly. It appears only when it must, when the threads of fate tangle in ways that demand its intervention. Some say it is a messenger of the gods, sent to guide or test humanity. Others believe it is a spirit itself, bound to the land and its people, forever watching, forever waiting. Its cry is not just a sound, it is a mirror, reflecting the truths we fear to face and the paths we are too blind to see. In the still of the night, when the forest seems to breathe as one, the bird's call is a reminder of life's fragility. It is said that even the bravest hunters pause at its sound, their weapons lowered as they bow their heads in respect. For the luda-luda bird is more than a creature, it is a force, a presence that transcends the physical. To hear it is to feel the weight of existence, the delicate balance of choice and consequence. Elders speak of the bird with reverence, their voices trembling with the memory of its song. They say that the luda-luda bird teaches humility, reminding humanity that there are powers beyond understanding, forces that shape the world in ways unseen. Its cry is both a gift and a challenge, a call to action that cannot be ignored. Children, wide-eyed with wonder, listen to these tales, their imaginations alight with visions of the bird. They dream of its shimmering feathers, its haunting melody, and the mystery it carries. But even in their dreams, there is a sense of awe, a recognition that the luda-luda bird is not to be trifled with. It is a guardian, a prophet, a legend etched into the heart of the forest and the soul of those who hear its call. The forest holds its breath when the luda-luda bird appears, the air thick with anticipation and unease. Every rustle of leaves, every shadow, feels charged with meaning. To see the bird, to hear its song, is to be touched by something eternal. It is a moment that lingers, a melody that echoes long after the bird has flown, its message delivered, its purpose fulfilled. The moon hung low and heavy in the night sky, its pale light spilling over the forest like a shroud. A lone traveler moved along the path, their footsteps hesitant, as if each step carried a weight unseen. The trees whispered secrets to one another, their branches swaying in a rhythm that matched the traveler's heartbeat. Somewhere, faint and haunting, came a sound, a growl, deep and guttural, slipping through the air like a blade. The traveler froze. It wasn't the sound of any animal they knew. It carried something else within it, something ancient and alive. Shapeshifters have long been the shadow in humanity's stories, the beings that walk the line between man and beast, between what is known and what cannot be named. They are not bound by form or rules, their very existence a defiance of nature itself. The tales say their transformations are seamless, their new forms as natural to them as their own skin. But what they gain in power, they pay for in isolation, mistrusted by all who hear of their kind. There is a story told in hushed voices of a man who could become a wolf. He lived on the edge of the village, a solitary figure with piercing eyes that seemed to see through lies and walls alike. Children were warned to stay away from his home, for it was said that under the light of the full moon, he would shed his humanity and roam the woods on four legs, his howls echoing through the night. No one dared confront him, for fear of awakening the beast. One night, a young girl, curious and unafraid, followed him as he disappeared into the forest. She crept silently, her small footsteps lost in the hum of the cicadas. She watched as he stopped in a clearing, the moonlight pooling around him like water. And then it happened. His body contorted, his bones shifting beneath his skin with sickening precision. Fur erupted where there had been none, his hands curling into claws. The girl stifled a scream, her heart pounding as she realized the stories were true. But instead of running, she stayed, her wide eyes filled not with fear but with wonder. The wolf turned to her, its golden eyes locking with hers. For a moment, the air between them was electric, charged with something neither could name. Then, without a sound, it disappeared into the shadows, leaving the girl trembling but alive. She never spoke of that night, though her gaze would often drift to the forest, her thoughts lingering on the man who was not just a man. In other tales, shapeshifters are protectors, their transformations a gift rather than a curse. A woman in a fishing village was said to take the form of a great sea turtle, guiding lost sailors to safety. Her human form was unassuming, her presence quiet, but those who looked closely would notice the faint pattern of scales on her skin, the way her movements seemed almost fluid, as if she carried the ocean within her. When storms came, she would disappear, only to return days later with stories of ships saved and lives spared. But not all shapeshifters are benevolent. Some are said to be cursed, their transformations born of anger or betrayal. A hunter once betrayed his closest friend for the promise of power, only to find himself trapped in the form of a bear. His roars of regret shook the mountains, but the curse could not be undone. He was forced to wander the wilderness, neither man nor beast, a prisoner of his own greed. Villagers who saw him would leave offerings of food, their pity mingled with fear, for they knew his story and dreaded the possibility of a similar fate. There is an intimacy to the act of transformation, a vulnerability in shedding one's form to become something else. The stories often speak of pain, the agony of bones breaking and reforming, the skin stretching to accommodate a new shape. It is a reminder that power comes at a cost, that to become something greater often means losing something vital. The transformative spirits, unlike the were-beasts, are not bound by curses or the cycles of the moon. They shift between forms with ease, their fluidity a testament to their connection with the natural world. They are said to take the shape of animals to guide, to warn, or to punish. A bird with human eyes might lead a lost child back to safety. A serpent with an unnatural globe might appear in a dream, its presence a message too important to ignore. One legend speaks of a man who fell in love with a shapeshifter, unaware of her true nature. She was radiant in her human form, her laughter like the sound of rain on leaves. But every night, she would disappear, her absence a mystery he could not solve. One evening, he followed her, his heart heavy with suspicion. He watched as she shed her human form, her body elongating, feathers sprouting from her arms as she became a magnificent eagle. She soared into the sky, her cry piercing the air, a sound both mournful and free. The man fell to his knees, torn between love and the realization that she could never truly belong to him. Shapeshifters remind us of the fluidity of identity, the idea that we are not confined to the forms we are born into. They challenge our perceptions of what it means to be human, to belong, to exist. Their stories are both a warning and a celebration, a testament to the power of change and the weight it carries. The forest holds many secrets, but none as profound as the shapeshifters who call it home. Their presence lingers in the rustle of leaves, the fleeting shadows that move just beyond the corner of the eye. To see one is a rare gift, a moment that lingers in the heart long after the creature has vanished. They are a reminder of the unknown, the spaces between what is and what could be. They are the guardians of transformation, the keepers of the line between man and beast, between the known and the unimaginable. The water was still, its surface reflecting the crimson streaks of the setting sun. But beneath that serene exterior, there was movement, gentle, deliberate, ancient. Fishermen on their canoes halted their paddles, their eyes scanning the horizon with quiet reverence. They whispered prayers into the air, their words trembling as if carried on a fragile thread. The water had its guardians, and they were always listening. Across Oceania, the vast expanse of ocean connects not just islands, but lives, myths, and the pulse of existence itself. The water is a sacred expanse, a giver and taker, a realm teeming with life yet cloaked in mystery. Within its depths dwell the guardians, creatures that are more than fish or mammal, more than what human eyes can fully perceive. They are spirit and flesh, protectors and punishers, their presence a thread weaving together the tapestry of the people who call these islands home. One of the most revered beings is the guardian shark. In the atolls of Polynesia, families tell of their ancestors becoming sharks after death, their spirits mingling with the waves. These sharks are not feared, they are family, sacred beings who watch over their descendants. A shark with unusual markings or behavior is seen not as an anomaly, but as a messenger. When a child falls ill, the family might visit the shore, calling out softly, asking the shark for guidance. And when the illness lifts, their gratitude flows back into the water, offerings of flowers and food floating on the waves. But the guardians are not always gentle. A chief once defied the sacred laws, building his fishing nets where he was forbidden. He laughed off the warnings, confident in his power. That night, under a moon so bright it turned the waves silver, the chief set out to fish. He did not return. Days later, his canoe was found, battered and empty, its sides slashed as if by claws. The villagers knew who had come for him, a guardian shark, angered by his arrogance. They mourned, but they did not question. The waters had spoken. In other places, the guardians take the form of turtles, their shells carrying the weight of stories older than memory. A woman on a remote Micronesian island once claimed to have seen a turtle with eyes that glowed like embers. She was a skeptic, quick to dismiss the old tales as superstition. But that day, when she waded into the water, the turtle approached her. It swam in circles, its massive body moving with a grace that felt almost human. She reached out, and in that moment, she swore the world stilled. The turtle met her gaze, its glowing eyes full of something she couldn't name. She left the water trembling, her disbelief shaken loose like sand in the tide. The guardian's presence is not confined to the sea. Rivers, too, hold their spirits, the lifeblood of islands where fresh water is as precious as gold. In Papua New Guinea, tales speak of eel-like beings that live in the hidden pools deep within the jungle. These creatures, said to be neither fully fish nor fully spirit, guard the water from those who would pollute it. A man once tried to dam a sacred stream, hoping to divert its flow for his own crops. That night, the air grew heavy, and the villagers woke to find his fields dry and his dam washed away. The man himself was never seen again. Children grow up knowing the rules of the water, what can be taken and what must be left. A young boy in the Solomon Islands learned this when he caught a crab larger than any he had seen before. Its shell was black and gleaming, its pincers sharp as coral. Proud of his find, he carried it back to the village, ignoring the whispers of his elders. That night, as he slept, he dreamed of the crab, its eyes glowing red, its body swelling until it filled the sky. He awoke to find his hands covered in welts, his skin burning as if stung. His family returned the crab to the shore, apologizing with words and offerings. The boy's welts faded, but his fear of the water lingered. There is an unspoken bond between the people and the guardians, a relationship built on respect and balance. In Tonga, fishermen are known to speak to the whales, their songs a blend of gratitude and plea. The whales, massive and ancient, are seen as carriers of wisdom, their migrations marking the rhythms of life. When a whale breaches near a canoe, the fishermen do not see it as chance but as a sign, a moment to pause and reflect on their place in the world. Even the smallest creatures carry meaning. In Fiji, crabs that scuttle across the shore are believed to carry messages from the ocean's depths. Their sudden appearance is said to herald change, their movements steadied like omens. A crab scuttling toward the village might mean abundance, while one heading toward the water could signal a storm. And then there are the spirits that guard the water's edges, the liminal spaces where land and sea collide. In Samoa, stories are told of figures that appear at dusk, their forms shimmering like water itself. They are said to be guardians of the shoreline, protecting it from those who would take too much. A man who ignored the warnings and harvested coral was found days later, wandering the shore with empty eyes, his memory stripped away like the tide pulling back sand. The guardians are not merely creatures or spirits, they are bridges between worlds, their forms a blend of the tangible and the ethereal. They remind the people of Oceania of their connection to the water, of the respect it demands and the gifts it gives. To see a guardian is to feel the weight of centuries pressing close, to know that you are not alone, that your actions ripple outward like a stone thrown into a still pond. The water is alive, its guardians the reflection of its power and mystery. They are a reminder that the ocean, rivers, and shores are not just places but presences, their spirits as real as the salt in the air and the sand beneath your feet. And as the sun sinks below the horizon, casting its final light on the waves, you can almost hear their whispers, a song carried on the wind, ancient and eternal. The air felt heavier here, the kind of weight that settled deep in your chest and made each breath feel borrowed. Shadows flickered on the walls of the cave, not from fire or sunlight, but from something unseen, something that moved without sound. People whispered of beasts, their names spoken cautiously, as if calling them aloud might summon their wrath. These were not ordinary creatures, they were ancient, otherworldly, born in the depths where no light dared venture. They were the creatures of the underworld. The underworld wasn't just a place, it was a presence, an ever-watchful force beneath the surface of life. It had guardians, protectors, and hunters, each serving a purpose as vast as the dark void they came from. A fisherman from Vanuatu once told of hearing the growl of an underworld beast during a storm at sea. It wasn't the roar of the waves or the howl of the wind, it was something deeper, a sound that echoed not in his ears but in his bones. He survived the storm, but his eyes carried the shadow of what he'd heard, his voice trembling each time he spoke of it. Among the stories of these creatures, none strikes fear quite like the tale of the Moo, the great lizard-like beings said to guard the passageways between the living world and the underworld. In Hawaiian legend, Moo were massive, their scales glinting like obsidian, their eyes pools of liquid fire. They were neither entirely malevolent nor benevolent, but they were unforgiving. Those who disrespected the land or water were said to meet the Moo, and none ever returned to tell what lay beyond. A young woman on Kauai once claimed she saw a Moo near a sacred pool. She was warned not to go near, but curiosity overwhelmed her. She approached the water's edge, drawn by something she couldn't explain. The air grew cold, and then she saw it, eyes rising from the depths, unblinking and ancient. She ran, her screams carried by the wind. She was never the same, her once bright spirit dimmed as if the beast had taken a part of her soul. But not all underworld creatures were monstrous in form. Some appeared almost human, their beauty a trap for the unwary. In Fiji, stories are told of Vaikakisai, beings who walk the earth with the elegance of mortals but whose shadows flicker like firelight. They lure people into caves with promises of riches or lost loved ones, only to transform once the victim is too far to escape. A man who disappeared into one such cave was found years later, wandering a nearby village with no memory of who he was. His eyes glowed faintly in the dark, and villagers swore he muttered names they didn't recognize, names of the lost. In the Solomon Islands, there is a tale of a beast called Tareva, a serpent with a mouth wide enough to swallow the sun. Its body is said to coil endlessly, wrapping around the roots of the world. When Tareva stirs, earthquakes shake the land, and the people say it is angry, perhaps at those who dare disturb the balance between life and the underworld. One elder recalled hearing Tarava's hiss as a child, the sound so loud it drowned out the crashing of waves during a typhoon. It wasn't the storm that scared us, he said, his voice trembling. It was knowing something bigger was watching. The underworld is also home to spirits that blur the line between animal and shadow. In Samoa, people speak of Tetie, creatures with elongated limbs that seem to stretch impossibly long. They are said to climb trees, their movements eerily silent, their eyes glowing like embers. Villagers tell of hunters who ventured into the forest at night, only to feel a sudden weight on their shoulders as if unseen hands pressed down. Those who looked back vanished, their names remembered only in hushed prayers. Not all encounters are terrifying. Some bring a strange, bittersweet understanding. A boy from Tonga once wandered too close to a sacred cave. He was lost for days, and when he returned, his hair had turned white. He spoke of a creature with wings like smoke and eyes that seemed to hold the stars. It did not harm him, but it showed him visions of his ancestors, their voices a mix of sorrow and pride. He was different after that, quieter, more reflective. He claimed he had seen both the pain and the power of the underworld, and it had left its mark. In Melanesian myths, there are beasts with voices that mimic human cries. A hunter might hear his name called from the dark, the voice so familiar he cannot help but follow. These creatures are said to lead their victims to the underworld, where they are trapped as servants, their own voices stolen to lure others. A hunter once returned after following such a call, his skin pale and his eyes hollow. He never spoke of what he saw, but he never hunted alone again. The beasts of the underworld are more than mere monsters, they are symbols, their forms carrying the weight of lessons too profound to be spoken plainly. A guardian might represent the boundaries between respect and arrogance, while a serpent could embody the cycle of destruction and renewal. To see an underworld creature is to be reminded of life's fragility, of the thin line between the known and the unknown. In one island village, a storm revealed a massive stone carving of a beast, its features sharp and angular, its mouth open as if in a perpetual scream. The villagers took it as a warning, an omen of the underworld breaking through. The elder who had ignored sacred rituals fell ill that night, his fever raging like a fire. He confessed to neglecting the offerings meant for the spirits and begged for forgiveness. When he passed, his family placed his ashes at the base of the carving, hoping to appease whatever force had come for him. The stories of underworld creatures are not told lightly. They are warnings, lessons, and prayers wrapped in myth. They remind the people of Oceania that the world they walk on is not entirely their own. Beneath their feet lies another existence, one that pulses with ancient power and endless mystery. To glimpse it, even for a moment, is to feel the weight of eternity pressing close, whispering truths that cannot be ignored. The night air was heavy with a strange stillness, the kind that made even the rustle of leaves seem loud. Then it came, a shadow against the moonlight, its wings cutting through the darkness like a blade through silk. There was a whisper in the wind, a low, mournful sound that carried the weight of countless generations. Eyes turned skyward, searching for the source of this presence. It wasn't just a bird, it was something more, something ancient. In that moment, hearts raced with both awe and unease. In the stories passed down through oceanic myths, winged creatures have always been more than mere animals. They are messengers, guardians, harbingers of change. Owls, with their wide, unblinking eyes, are said to carry the wisdom of the ancestors. But their call in the dead of night is not always welcome. It can be a warning, a premonition of death. A woman in Samoa once heard the hoot of an owl just outside her window. The next morning, her brother, a fisherman, did not return from the sea. She never spoke of it, but each time an owl's cry pierced the silence, her face would pale, her hands trembling as if she could feel the weight of that night all over again. Dragons, though less common in oceanic tales, are no less powerful. In Fiji, there are legends of the Dakawanga, a dragon-like sea creature with wings that shimmer like the surface of the ocean under a full moon. It is said to guard the waters, protecting its domain from intruders, but also guiding lost sailors home, if it deems them worthy. A sailor once recounted a storm that should have claimed his life. The waves were merciless, his boat all but destroyed, yet he swore he saw a massive shadow beneath him, its wings creating an eerie calm. He was found days later, adrift but alive, clutching a piece of driftwood with scales that seemed to glow faintly in the sunlight. In Papua New Guinea, there is a tale of a bird so large it blocks out the sun. The locals call it Siagoro, a winged guardian that appears only in times of great peril. It is both feared and revered, for its presence signals upheaval, a shift in the world's balance. An elder once described seeing it as a child. Its wings stretched to the edges of the horizon, he said, his voice thick with emotion. And when it cried out, the earth seemed to tremble. That year, the village faced a devastating flood, but those who survived believed the Siagoro had come to prepare them, its appearance a gift of warning rather than destruction. Smaller winged creatures also hold powerful roles in these myths. Butterflies, delicate and fleeting, are often seen as carriers of the soul. In Micronesia, it is said that when a butterfly lands on you, it carries a message from someone who has passed on. A young boy, grieving the loss of his mother, once saw a butterfly circle him 3 times before settling on his shoulder. He swore he heard her voice, soft and comforting, telling him to be strong. From that day, butterflies were sacred to him, each one a reminder that love does not end with death. Not all winged beings are benevolent. Some are tricksters, their beauty hiding a dangerous cunning. In the Solomon Islands, people speak of the ruru, a bird with feathers so vibrant they seem to shimmer in every color imaginable. It lures people into the forest with its enchanting song, only to lead them astray. A man once followed the ruru, enchanted by its melody. Hours turned into days, and when he finally returned, he was not the same. His eyes had lost their light, and he spoke only in riddles, as if his mind had been taken by the creature's spell. The harpy of Polynesian legend is another figure that strikes both fear and fascination. With the body of a bird and the face of a woman, it is said to haunt the skies during storms, her cries blending with the thunder. She is neither entirely good nor evil. She appears to those in distress, sometimes to offer help, other times to exact vengeance. A fisherman, stranded during a tempest, claimed he saw her perched on the mast of his broken boat. Her eyes glowed like embers, and when she spoke, it was as if the storm itself quieted to hear her. He survived, but he would not speak of what she said, only that her voice was unlike anything human. In Tonga, there is a belief in the Whangatu, a mythical bat with wings so vast they are said to blot out the stars. It is a creature of the night, a silent watcher of the living. Elders warn against looking directly at it, for its gaze is said to see into your soul, revealing your darkest secrets. A woman once claimed to have seen the Whangatu during a moonless night. She said it hovered above her, its eyes piercing, but it did not harm her. Instead, she felt as if it had judged her, weighed her spirit, and found her worthy. From that night, she lived differently, more careful, more grateful, as if she had been given a second chance. Each winged creature carries its own story, its own message. Some are protectors, fierce and loyal, guarding the people and their lands. Others are warnings, their presence a reminder that the natural and supernatural are deeply intertwined. And some, like the Whangatu or the Dakawanga, seem to exist beyond human understanding, their purpose inscrutable yet undeniably powerful. Even today, the sight of a bird soaring high or the faint flutter of wings at twilight stirs something ancient in the heart. It is a connection to the past, to the myths that have shaped the cultures of Oceania. These creatures, whether feared or revered, remind us that the skies above are not empty, they are alive with stories, with spirits, with the echoes of those who came before. To see them is to feel both small and infinite, to be reminded of the vastness of life and the mysteries that still linger just out of reach. The night was thick with fog, the kind that clings to your skin and fills your lungs with dampness. A faint rustling came from the dense foliage nearby, a sound so subtle it could have been the wind, if not for the distinct, rhythmic crunch of something heavy stepping on dried leaves. A man stood frozen, flashlight trembling in his hand. Its weak beam barely cut through the mist, illuminating only the outlines of gnarled trees and the eerie shadows they cast. Then, just beyond the edge of the light, two eyes glinted, large, unblinking, and reflecting an intelligence that was unmistakably not human. Stories like this surface all the time. A fisherman swears he saw a massive, scaly creature rise from the ocean depths off the coast of Fiji, only to disappear with a tail slap that sent waves rippling for miles. A hiker recounts an encounter with a shadowy figure on a mountain trail, its hulking form so strange it couldn't be a bear. Villagers in Papua New Guinea whisper about a creature that resembles the fabled ropen, with its leathery wings and glowing belly, swooping silently through the night skies. These accounts, told with trembling voices and wide eyes, share one thing: the certainty that what was seen was not of this world. Cryptids or legends? The line blurs when you hear these first-hand stories, the kind that come from people who have nothing to gain and everything to lose by speaking up. A farmer in Vanuatu recalled tending his field when he noticed his goats acting strangely, their usual docile behavior replaced with frantic bleats and darting movements. Before he could investigate, a shadow passed overhead, a fleeting, winged figure that blocked the sun for an instant. The next morning, one of his goats was missing, and the soft impression of clawed feet marked the soil nearby. He spoke of the encounter with a mixture of fear and awe, convinced he had seen a creature that exists only in old tales. The sightings aren't limited to the wilderness. In urban areas, too, the unexplained finds a foothold. In the bustling capital of Pohnpei, a young woman claims she saw something extraordinary near the ruins of Nan Madol. It was dusk, and she was walking home along a path that bordered the ancient site. She heard splashes from the water, but when she looked, she saw no fish or bird. Instead, a figure rose from the shallows, a serpentine form with glistening skin that reflected the orange light of the setting sun. It watched her silently before slipping beneath the surface. She refuses to return to that path, her voice trembling whenever she recounts the moment. Not every sighting is clear. Sometimes, it's the aftermath that speaks louder than the event itself. In a remote village in the Solomon Islands, residents woke to find massive footprints leading from the forest to the shore. They were unlike anything seen before, too large for a human, yet too defined to be the work of erosion or an animal. The prints stopped abruptly at the water's edge, as though the creature had simply vanished into the ocean. Elders muttered about the old stories, about creatures that walk the land but belong to another realm entirely. Skeptics argue that these accounts are products of imagination or misidentification. They point to known animals, optical illusions, or even hoaxes. But those who've had encounters speak with a conviction that's hard to dismiss. A boy in the Marshall Islands, no more than 12, described seeing a creature during a storm. He had sought shelter beneath a rocky overhang near the coast when a bolt of lightning illuminated the sky. For a brief moment, he saw a figure in the water, a massive form with what looked like fins protruding from its sides and eyes that seemed to glow. "It wasn't a fish," he said, shaking his head. "It was watching me." There's a peculiar feeling that comes with these stories, a sense of unease mixed with wonder. Could they be true? Could the world still hold beings that defy explanation? Science has uncovered so much, yet the ocean remains vast and the forests dense, with places so untouched by humans they might as well belong to another time. For every photograph that can be debunked, there's an eyewitness account that lingers, its vivid detail hard to ignore. In Palau, a fisherman recalled an encounter that haunted him for years. He was out at sea alone, his small boat drifting as he cast his net. It was a quiet night, the stars bright above and the water calm. But then he felt it, a presence. He turned to see a shape moving beneath the surface, larger than his boat and circling slowly. At first, he thought it was a whale, but then it breached, and his breath caught in his throat. It was sleek and dark, with a head that resembled both a serpent and a bird. It stared at him, unblinking, before diving back down. For hours, it stayed near, surfacing occasionally as if to remind him it was still there. When he finally reached shore, his hands were shaking so badly he could barely secure his boat. "It let me go," he whispered, as if speaking the words too loudly might summon it back. Perhaps the most haunting thing about these tales is the way they linger. The creatures may vanish as quickly as they appear, but the memory stays, etched in the minds of those who encounter them. They speak of a world that is still wild, still mysterious. Whether they are guardians, messengers, or simply beings that exist beyond our understanding, they remind us that there is much we cannot explain. And so, the stories continue, passed down through generations, shared over fires and in quiet conversations. Each sighting adds a new layer to the tapestry, weaving a narrative that refuses to be forgotten. Are these beings mere figments of the imagination, or do they walk, swim, and soar among us still? The truth may never be known, but one thing is certain: the possibility that they might be out there keeps the heart racing and the mind wandering long after the tale has been told. The light flickered, casting strange shadows across the screen as the creature emerged from the mist. Its form was unlike anything anyone had ever seen before, huge, with wings like a bat, claws like a lion, and eyes that burned with an eerie, otherworldly glow. The audience sat on the edge of their seats, unable to tear their eyes away, heartbeats quickening in rhythm with the creature's slow, purposeful steps. This was no ordinary film, no simple creature from another world. It was something much older, something that had been whispered about in the corners of ancient cultures for centuries. It was a mythical creature, a monster, a god, a being of power and mystery that had now found a place in the modern world of cinema, books, and art. But how did we get here? How did these creatures, beasts with bodies like dragons, voices like thunder, and eyes that could see through your very soul, find their way into the mainstream? It's not just the fire-breathing dragons from Game of Thrones or the ghosts that haunt the pages of Harry Potter. These creatures have roots far deeper than popular culture would have us believe. Their origins are as old as civilization itself, echoing across distant lands where the sea meets the sky, and the jungles pulse with ancient, untold secrets. The silver screen first brought these mythic beings to life in a way that no other medium could. With special effects, elaborate sets, and CGI, creatures that once lived only in the dreams of sailors, the fears of explorers, or the stories passed down in hushed tones by the campfire were suddenly right in front of us. The creatures of the deep, sea monsters like the kraken and terrifying beings like the mokumbembe from African folklore, were brought to life in a swirl of digital artistry. For a moment, we forget the boundaries between myth and reality, swept away by the pulse of adventure and the certainty that these creatures could be real, that they could still be out there. But as we watch these creatures flicker across the screen, we are also confronted with something far more unsettling. It's not just their size or their power that strikes us. It's the connection we feel to them. The kraken, those enormous tentacles emerging from the depths, symbolize something primal, the fear of the unknown, the terror that lies beneath the surface. But they also speak of power, of ancient forces that remain far beyond our control. The sea is vast, endless, and full of secrets that we can only imagine. The kraken, in its monstrous form, reminds us that there are forces in nature we can't possibly tame, forces that may yet rise from the depths when we least expect them. And then, there's the siren. You've heard the song, haven't you? The sweet, haunting melody that calls out to sailors, luring them closer, closer until the sea swallows them whole. It's the perfect metaphor for the unknown. The siren song is a dangerous allure, a promise of something more, something thrilling, but with a cost that may be too high. In films, these sirens have evolved over time. Once vicious, dangerous creatures, they have become more complex, sometimes portrayed with empathy, as beings misunderstood by the world that surrounds them. Yet, the core of their being remains the same, alluring, dangerous, and always just beyond reach. But what about the more gentle creatures? The guardians of the forest, the spirits that protect sacred land from those who seek to destroy it? These too have found their way into popular culture, woven into the very fabric of our favorite stories. Think of Avatar, where the Nausicaa, with their connection to nature, speak to the spirits of the forest, living in harmony with creatures that are as ancient as the world itself. These beings, whether in the form of trees, animals, or ethereal spirits, are not just protectors of nature, they are reflections of the balance we have lost. The mythic creatures, in these stories, become a mirror, showing us what happens when we ignore that delicate balance. When we take too much, when we forget the importance of respect and harmony, these creatures are there to remind us that the earth will not be silenced. In literature, the creatures of myth come alive in new forms as well. From the pages of Percy Jackson to the sprawling worlds of Lord of the Rings, creatures that were once confined to ancient myths now roam the pages of novels, their stories retold for a new generation. The dragon, a creature of strength and wisdom, is not just a monster to be slain, but a complex being, often wise and old, carrying within it the knowledge of a time long past. In books, dragons are no longer just enemies to be conquered, they are allies, mentors, and symbols of the wild, untamed forces of the world. In the world of art, mythic creatures transform once again. Artists depict these creatures not only as monsters, but as reflections of our own desires, fears, and longings. The Minotaur, once an enemy to be defeated, is now portrayed as tragic, a creature caught between two worlds, neither fully man nor beast. The centaur, with its noble posture and the wise eyes of a scholar, becomes not just a warrior, but a figure of wisdom and connection to the land. These creatures in art are not just representations of otherworldly beings, they become symbols, mirrors that reflect our understanding of the natural world, of power, and of the complex, tangled web of our humanity. Yet, the question lingers, why are we so drawn to these creatures, these beings that exist between myth and reality? Perhaps it's because, deep down, we need them. We need to believe in something greater than ourselves. We need to believe in creatures that embody the forces of nature, the powers of creation and destruction, the guardians of ancient wisdom. These beings remind us that the world is vast and full of mysteries, that we are not the center of it all. And when they are portrayed in movies, books, and art, they remind us of a time when we looked to the stars, to the sea, and to the land for answers, for meaning, and for the belief that perhaps, just perhaps, there is something out there that we cannot yet comprehend. In these representations, the mythical creatures of old are transformed, adapted, and reshaped, yet they remain a part of our collective imagination. They tell us stories of power, loss, wisdom, and mystery. And with every retelling, they become something more, something that resonates with our deepest fears, our greatest hopes, and our eternal longing for the unknown. The earth shuddered under the heavy thud of something massive, unseen, yet unmistakably there. A ripple across the surface of the water, a tremor in the ground, or the sudden silence in the air, something ancient stirred in the world, waiting to be discovered. Was it a myth? A legend passed down through generations? Or was there something more? Maybe the creatures, the giants of old, had never really disappeared, but had instead hidden themselves, their stories woven into the fabric of human history, waiting for the right moment to be rediscovered. We've all heard the tales, the great serpent coiled around mountains, the dragon with wings that could block out the sun, the towering beasts that roamed forgotten forests or swam in dark oceans. They've lingered in our imaginations, haunting us, stirring our souls. But could it be that these myths, these creatures, aren't just born from the wild minds of storytellers, but from something real? Something that once walked the earth and left traces in the winds, the waters, and the bones of the world? There are moments in history, whispers in the back of our minds, where the line between myth and reality begins to blur. Scientists, armed with tools that can peer deep into the earth or look far across the stars, are constantly challenging our understanding of the world. Could they explain the creatures that our ancestors swore existed, these fantastical beings that roamed lands and seas before being swallowed by time and memory? Take, for example, the mighty kraken, whose massive tentacles dragged ships to the depths of the sea. Sailors spoke of it with reverence and fear, describing a creature so enormous that it could tear a ship apart with a single swipe. But what if this wasn't pure imagination? What if the kraken was inspired by something real? Scientists have suggested that such stories could have been based on sightings of giant squid, creatures with tentacles that could reach lengths of up to 40 feet, lurking in the deep, dark oceans, their very existence barely comprehended by human eyes. It's easy to see how a creature like that could transform into the stuff of legend, growing larger with every retelling, until it became the terrifying kraken we know today. And then there are the dragons. What creature could possibly match the terror these beasts have inspired in so many cultures? Long before they appeared in books and films, these winged serpents were feared across the globe. From the fiery dragons of European lore to the noble, wise dragons of the East, they were said to possess powers that defied nature, breathing fire, flying at unimaginable speeds, and possessing knowledge beyond the reach of men. But what if these dragons were inspired by real animals? Some scientists point to ancient, giant lizards like the Komodo dragon, or even larger prehistoric reptiles like the pterosaur. Their wings, their size, their power, could these creatures, who once ruled the skies, have left a mark on the myths of the world, shaping our image of dragons? Then there's the tale of the Yeti, the elusive creature of snow and ice, seen only by a few brave souls who risked their lives to scale the Himalayan mountains. Stories of this ape-like giant have been told for centuries, from the frosty peaks of Tibet to the wild mountains of Nepal. Scientists have long debated whether the Yeti was simply a misidentified bear or a larger, undiscovered species of primate. Some suggest that it could even be a descendant of ancient humans, an evolutionary offshoot that somehow survived in the harsh, frozen landscapes, hidden from the modern world. For centuries, the Yeti has been more myth than reality, but each year, the evidence piles up, with footprints, strange hairs, and sightings that can't be easily explained away. And what of the mermaids? Those enchanting creatures, half woman, half fish, that lured sailors with their beauty and songs? The stories have existed for as long as people have sailed the oceans, from the Mediterranean to the coasts of Japan. Could these be based on real encounters with sea creatures? Some suggest that mermaids might have been inspired by sightings of manatees, or sea cows, which, from a distance, could easily be mistaken for human figures floating on the surface of the water. Their features, round faces, elongated bodies, and a gentle manner, would have been enough to inspire legends that span centuries. As humans, we've always been fascinated by the unknown, by the mysteries that lie just beyond our understanding. We've created stories to explain the things we don't understand, creatures that embody our deepest fears, desires, and hopes. But there's something incredibly humbling about the idea that these myths may have roots in the natural world. Could it be that what we once thought of as fantasy was simply the result of encountering creatures so different from our own, so strange, that we couldn't help but invent stories around them? It's a chilling thought, that what we've always believed to be legends could be the remnants of a world we've forgotten, a world where creatures roamed free, untouched by time. The landscape of science, biology, geology, paleontology, is full of surprises. With each new discovery, we find fragments of the past that make us question what we thought we knew. Fossils of creatures long extinct, dinosaurs with feathers, massive beasts that once ruled the earth, have only deepened our sense of wonder. Could it be that, buried beneath layers of rock and time, there are still creatures waiting to be discovered? Creatures that lived alongside the ones in the stories we tell, who vanished long before the pages of history were written. It's not just the creatures themselves that stir us, it's the idea that these creatures are symbols of something greater. The kraken, the dragon, the yeti, the mermaid, each of these beings represents something deep within us, something we've always longed to understand. They are creatures of power, of mystery, of the unknown. And as we piece together the scientific theories behind these myths, we find ourselves staring not just at the creatures of the past, but at the very heart of human imagination, at the desires that drive us to reach beyond the known world, to look for answers in the dark corners of the earth and the vast, uncharted seas. The idea that the world of myth could intersect with the world of science is a thrilling one. It makes us ask ourselves, if these creatures could have existed, what else might still be hidden? The myths, once just stories passed around a campfire, now carry a new weight, a sense of possibility that fills us with both awe and wonder. In the quiet morning light, when the world feels still, the forest breathes. You can almost hear its heartbeat as the leaves stir gently in the wind. The river sings its age-old song, winding through ancient lands, carrying with it the stories of creatures who once ruled the earth. The land is not just earth and trees, it is alive, a world that has existed long before us, and will continue long after we are gone. But that heartbeat is weakening. The world is changing, and with it, the creatures we hold dear. Some of them are slipping away, leaving behind only the faintest of traces. Yet, somewhere, in the whispers of the trees, in the call of the ocean, and in the pages of old stories, there is hope. There are myths, legends, and ancient tales that speak of guardians, protectors of the land, sea, and sky. These creatures, often bigger than life itself, embody the power of nature. They have been etched into our memories and hearts for generations. But what if the very creatures they speak of are not just stories? What if these myths are more than just the dreams of a forgotten past? They are the voices of a world that needs saving. These stories have always had a way of reaching our souls, reminding us of what is worth protecting. When we hear of a mythical creature like the great dragon or the mighty turtle, we see them not just as beings of magic, but as symbols of something much greater, the forces of nature that have shaped our world. We connect with them because they represent the wilderness, untamed and free, but also fragile and in need of our protection. What if the stories we tell, the legends passed down through time, are not just warnings or memories, they are calls to action? Take the tale of the great turtle. In many cultures, turtles are revered as sacred beings, often thought to carry the weight of the world on their backs. They are symbols of longevity, wisdom, and endurance. But beyond the myths, these creatures are struggling. Sea turtles, once abundant, are now endangered. Their habitats are disappearing, and without the efforts of those who fight to protect them, they may vanish from the oceans forever. Yet, through the lens of mythology, turtles have become more than just creatures on the brink of extinction. They are living reminders of the delicate balance between humanity and nature. When we fight to protect them, we are not just saving a species, we are honoring the ancient stories that have kept their spirit alive for so long. And what about the mysterious, ever-elusive creatures of the deep sea? They have inspired some of the most haunting legends: the kraken, the sea serpents, the guardians of the deep. For centuries, sailors spoke of these massive creatures that lived beneath the waves, their tentacles powerful enough to tear ships apart. But the creatures of the sea, much like the creatures of the land, are under threat. The oceans are changing, becoming a wasteland of pollution, and creatures that once thrived there are now struggling to survive. The mythical sea monsters remind us of the importance of the waters and the creatures that dwell within them, urging us to preserve what remains of the underwater world. The same goes for the great beasts that roam the earth, those whose size, strength, and majesty have been woven into the fabric of myth. The mighty lion, the wild elephant, the wolf that howls at the moon, all of these creatures have long been symbols of power and resilience. Yet today, they are disappearing. Poaching, habitat destruction, and climate change threaten to erase these animals from existence. In many ways, we are living in a time when the myths of old are colliding with the reality of extinction. The stories of the past, of creatures both real and mythical, are serving as a reminder that we have a responsibility to protect these creatures from vanishing. These beings, once guardians of the wild, are now in need of guardians themselves. When we fight to protect endangered species, we are doing more than just saving animals, we are protecting the very essence of the world we live in. We are fighting to preserve the places where these creatures live, the ecosystems that support them, and the stories that have been passed down through generations. The myths are not just the stuff of ancient tales, they are part of our collective identity. They are woven into the fabric of our cultures and our values, reminding us of the beauty and power of the natural world. They show us what is worth saving, what is worth fighting for. Perhaps, in this time of uncertainty, we need to look to the myths for guidance. They remind us that nature, though wild and untamable, is fragile. The guardians of the land, sea, and sky are not just creatures of the past, they are symbols of our collective responsibility to protect the world we share. The stories may have started as legends, but they hold truths that can inspire us to act, to change the way we interact with the earth, and to fight for the creatures who still roam the land, fly through the skies, and swim beneath the waves. There is a certain magic in the idea that the creatures of the past, both real and imagined, can inspire us to change the future. We may not have the power to stop the tides of time, but we do have the power to protect what remains. Through conservation, through advocacy, through action, we can create a world where the creatures of myth and legend continue to thrive. These stories are not just the past, they are the future. The dragons, the turtles, the great sea serpents, they are all calling to us, reminding us that it is not too late to save the world we love. In the end, it is not just the survival of the creatures themselves that matters, it is the survival of the stories they represent. The world we have today may be different from the one that inspired the myths of old, but the lessons they carry are timeless. When we protect nature, when we fight to save endangered species, we are honoring the very stories that have shaped us. We are ensuring that future generations will have their own myths to pass down, and that the creatures who inspired them will still walk the earth, swim the seas, and soar through the skies. The guardians of the world are waiting for us to hear their call. Will we answer? The fire crackled softly, sending sparks into the night air, as stories of old were shared under the vast, star-filled sky. The island's cool breeze carried the smell of salt from the ocean, mingling with the whispers of ancient tales that had traveled through generations. The moon hung high, casting a silver glow over the faces of those gathered, their eyes reflecting the timeless magic of the stories. These weren't just stories of the past, they were alive, as real as the waves crashing against the shore, as real as the trees that stretched toward the heavens. The legends of mythical creatures, from towering sea serpents to powerful birds, filled the air, wrapping themselves around the hearts of those who listened. In this moment, it's clear, the stories endure. They live in the hearts of the people, in the rhythms of their songs, in the way they walk the land. These creatures, beasts with the power to shape destinies, are not just figments of imagination. They are guardians, protectors, and symbols of something much bigger than themselves. They are reminders of the connection between the people and the land, between the seen and the unseen, between the world of the living and the spirits that whisper through the winds. Why do these mythical creatures still hold such power? Why do they remain relevant, even in the rush of modern life, where technology and science often seem to overshadow the magic of old? The answer is simple, though not always easy to see. These creatures carry with them a wisdom that we can't quite grasp. They are more than just tales to pass the time, they are the essence of the world itself, a reminder of the forces that shape our existence. The deep sea, where creatures like the giant squid and the fearsome shark lurk, speaks of mystery and the unknown. These creatures, some real and others imagined, represent the vastness of the ocean, the unexplored, the untamable. In the modern world, where we are used to controlling our surroundings and understanding everything with science, the ocean reminds us of how little we truly know. The myths of sea creatures speak to the human need for mystery, for wonder, and for the humbling reminder that there are still forces greater than ourselves. In a world where so many things are easily explained, where facts can be found at the touch of a button, the myths offer something that cannot be quantified. They offer meaning in a way that science alone cannot. These creatures are not just animals, they are symbols of the unseen forces that influence our lives, of the mysterious powers that shape the world around us. And it is these forces that the people of Oceania have respected and revered for centuries. The power of the sea, the wisdom of the sky, the strength of the earth, they are all reflected in the creatures that inhabit these myths. But it's not just the forces of nature that these creatures represent. They are also symbols of the human spirit. In the mythical creatures of Oceania, we see qualities that resonate deeply with the people. The turtle, slow and steady, represents resilience and wisdom. The bird, with its wings spread wide, represents freedom and transcendence. The sea serpent, elusive and dangerous, speaks of the trials we must face and the strength we need to survive them. These creatures mirror the struggles, the hopes, and the dreams of the people who live alongside them. These myths have been passed down through generations, but their power hasn't faded. It hasn't been lost to time. They are still alive because they speak to something universal, something that transcends the boundaries of culture and history. These creatures remain relevant because they are part of a deep, shared understanding of the world. In a world that often feels disconnected, where the pace of life leaves little time for reflection, these myths offer a way back to something essential. They remind us of who we are, of where we come from, and of the forces that shape our existence. Even in modern Oceania, where the world is rapidly changing, these myths continue to inspire and influence. They are not just relics of the past, they are living, breathing parts of the culture. They are woven into the fabric of daily life, into art, music, and ceremony. The mythical creatures of the sea, land, and sky are still celebrated, not as outdated beliefs, but as symbols of the resilience and strength of the people. In the face of change, they provide continuity, a link to the past that helps anchor the present. It's easy to dismiss these creatures as mere fantasy, as figments of a time long gone. But to do so is to overlook the deep wisdom they carry. These creatures, with their powerful symbolism, remind us of the things that matter most. They remind us of the importance of balance, of respect for the land and sea, and of the strength found in unity. They teach us that the world is more than what we see with our eyes. It is a world shaped by forces that cannot be explained, but must be felt, understood, and respected. The modern world often pushes us toward progress, toward achieving and conquering. But in that rush, we can forget the value of the stories that have sustained us for so long. The mythical creatures of Oceania remind us of something vital, that life is not just about what we can control or conquer, but about what we can respect and protect. These creatures are not just part of a forgotten past, they are symbols of a future that can be shaped by understanding, by respect, and by a deep connection to the world around us. These myths may have been born in the past, but they still live today, in the hearts and minds of the people who remember them. They remind us that we are not alone in this world. We are part of something larger, something timeless. And as long as we continue to tell these stories, these creatures will continue to live. Their power will endure, reminding us of the deep connection we share with the land, the sea, and the sky. These creatures will remain as long as we continue to remember their lessons, as long as we honor the world they protect, and as long as we respect the forces that bind us all together. The hum of the ocean waves lapping gently against the shore felt like the heartbeat of the earth itself, echoing through the air. There was something in the breeze, a kind of whisper, that hinted at more than just nature's voice. It was a reminder of the stories that have lived for centuries, carried through the generations, shaping not just the world of the past, but of the future. Today, young voices are beginning to rise, not to challenge the old stories, but to create new ones, stories rooted in tradition, yet sprouting wings into the future. It's almost as if the earth itself is calling, asking for fresh tales to be told, new creatures to be imagined. The ancient myths that once ruled the islands and shores still echo in the hearts of many, but now, they are being woven into a tapestry of something newer, something different. Today's generation stands on the shoulders of the giants of the past, gazing at the horizon and crafting myths of their own. They are taking the old and breathing new life into it, creating stories that speak to the present, with all of its challenges, dreams, and hopes. The stories of the past were not just about creatures, they were about connections. The bird that flies above, the fish that swims beneath the surface, the creatures of the jungle that silently watch. These myths were about understanding the world in all of its beauty and danger. They were about finding meaning in every ripple of the ocean and every rustle of leaves in the trees. But as the world changes, so too does the need for new meanings. The creatures of the old myths still roam in the hearts of many, but now, in the minds of the youth, there is room for new creatures, new guardians, new forces to be imagined. The modern myths are born from the same place, the heart of the people. They are shaped by the same hopes and fears, the same awe at the beauty of nature, and the same deep respect for the mysteries that lie beyond the horizon. But today's myths don't just focus on the monsters of the past, they focus on the monsters of the present. Creatures that might be lurking in the shadows of technology, in the hustle of urban life, in the chaos of a world that seems to be moving too fast. These new myths bring the ancient lessons into a modern world that is thirsty for meaning, for connection, for something to believe in. It's easy to dismiss these new stories as just another trend, just another way for people to make sense of a chaotic world. But in reality, these new myths are just as important as the ones that came before. They carry the same weight, the same power to shape the hearts of those who hear them. These stories, created by a new generation, are born from the same longing that the ancient stories were born from, the longing to understand the world, to find our place in it, and to protect it. For example, imagine a creature that roams the city streets, a protector of the forgotten spaces, the alleyways, the hidden parks, the places that are often overlooked. It could be a winged creature, soaring above the neon lights, its eyes seeing what others cannot see, the loneliness of those who have been left behind, the silence of the world in the midst of all the noise. This creature is not just a symbol of strength, but of compassion, of the quiet yet powerful force that stands in the shadows, offering protection to those who need it most. Or perhaps, in the deep heart of the forest, there is a creature that looks like nothing anyone has ever seen before, a combination of the land and the sea, born from the merging of different worlds. It could symbolize the connection between the old ways and the new, between tradition and innovation, between the past and the future. Its presence is a reminder that no matter how far we may wander from the path of our ancestors, we are still bound to the earth, to the water, and to the creatures that once roamed freely. These are not just stories for the sake of stories, they are stories for the soul. They reflect the fears, the struggles, and the dreams of the people today. These myths capture the spirit of a generation that is facing a world of uncertainty, of rapid change, and of deep longing for something meaningful. They speak of the hope that even in the chaos, there are creatures, guardians, protectors, guides, who are watching over us, helping us find our way through the storm. There is power in the new myths because they allow us to see the world differently. They invite us to imagine a world where we are not alone, where there are forces greater than ourselves, forces that we can turn to for guidance, for protection, for strength. These stories give us permission to dream, to imagine, to believe in something beyond the everyday. They allow us to confront the darkness and find light in it, to face the fears of the modern world and find courage. The old myths were born from a time of great challenges, where survival depended on understanding the rhythms of nature, the movements of the sea, and the forces of the sky. But today, we face new challenges, different threats. The creatures that roam our modern myths are born from the digital age, from the era of rapid technology, environmental destruction, and social change. These creatures don't just symbolize the earth and the sky, they symbolize the struggle for connection in a world that feels more disconnected than ever. And yet, despite all the change, there is a thread that runs through all of these myths, the belief in something greater, something beyond ourselves. Whether it's a creature of the sea, a bird of the sky, or a new beast that we can't yet name, the myths are still with us. They have not been lost, they have been transformed. They have evolved to meet the needs of the modern world, to offer guidance and comfort in the face of new struggles. And in that, they remain as powerful and meaningful as ever. In the stories of today, just as in the stories of the past, there is the same longing for understanding, the same hunger for meaning. The creatures that populate these new myths may look different from those of the old world, but their message is the same. They remind us that we are not alone, that we are connected to something bigger, something timeless. They offer us hope, and they remind us of the power of the stories we tell, and of the creatures, real or imagined, that continue to watch over us, guiding us, and reminding us of our place in the world. There are moments when the world feels vast, too large for one person to comprehend, stretching across continents, oceans, and skies. And then, there are moments when something so simple, so ancient, brings it all together, when the stories of one people suddenly mirror those of another. You might be standing on a beach in Australia, listening to the wind, and feel a connection to someone halfway across the world, standing by a river in Africa, or by a mountain in South America. You begin to realize that the myths that have been told for centuries are not isolated tales, but threads woven into a greater, universal tapestry, speaking a language that transcends borders. It's easy to think of myths as belonging only to one culture, confined to a single place, a single people. But when you listen closely, when you let the rhythm of the stories sink in, you start to hear the same themes, the same creatures, the same forces at play. The great serpent, winding through the earth. The bird with wings that stretch across the sky, bringing messages of hope or warning. The trickster, ever-changing, challenging the rules of the world. These stories, though told in different tongues, in different places, are often eerily similar, as if they are speaking to something deep inside of us all, a common understanding, a shared experience of life and nature. From the deserts of Australia, where the stories of the rainbow serpent shaped the land, to the forests of Central America, where Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, weaves his influence, there is an undeniable similarity in the way these creatures are revered. The serpent, whether it slithers through the soil of the Australian outback or coils around the ancient trees of the Mayan jungles, carries with it the same power, the same mystery. It is a force of creation and destruction, a symbol of the earth itself, a reminder of the fragile balance between life and death. In the vastness of the Pacific Ocean, the myths of the sea are just as universal. The stories of oceanic creatures, the great fish that saves the world, the sea monsters that rise from the depths, echo across cultures. In Polynesia, the goddess of the sea, Tangaroa, holds sway over the waters, just as the ancient Japanese tales of the Kawanokami, river gods, carry the same reverence for water's life-giving and destructive power. It's a connection that spans oceans, linking the waves of the Pacific to the rivers of distant lands, reminding us all of the sacredness of water and the mysteries that lie beneath its surface. Even the trickster, so common in the folklore of the world, appears in both Australian and oceanic myths, finding its way across cultures in the most unexpected ways. Whether it's the mischievous Duramulum, a trickster god in the mythology of Australia's indigenous peoples, or the Polynesian god Maui, who steals fire, lassoing the sun or fishing up islands, the trickster embodies a universal human trait, the desire to challenge the status quo, to test the boundaries, and sometimes, just to have fun with the world around us. These figures, no matter the region, remind us of the playful side of life, of the ways we bend the rules and sometimes create chaos in the process. But the real beauty of these connections lies in how these myths are not just about the creatures or gods they describe, they are about the people. These stories reflect the values of the cultures that created them, yet in a way that transcends individual experiences. They speak of the need to understand the natural world, to find meaning in the stars above, the earth below, and the winds that swirl in between. Whether it's the Aboriginal people of Australia watching the skies for the movement of the stars, or the Maori of New Zealand telling stories of the creation of the land, these myths show a shared human desire to connect with the world around us, to find our place within it, and to honor the forces that shape our lives. There are moments in history when cultures collide, when myths merge, and when stories from distant lands come together. The settlers who arrived on the shores of Oceania brought with them their own myths, their own legends, and in the centuries that followed, these tales began to intertwine with the older myths of the land. The dragons of the east, the thunderbirds of the north, and the gods of the west, all of these figures began to influence and be influenced by the stories of the oceanic peoples. The merging of these mythologies created something new, something that is still alive today in the way we tell stories and pass down traditions. As the world becomes more connected, we are starting to see more of these connections emerge. The rise of global media, social platforms, and storytelling tools means that stories are no longer confined to their places of origin. The myths that once existed in the corners of the world are now shared with millions. The Australian rainbow serpent can be found alongside the Norse Midgard serpent in the same conversation. The Polynesian god Tangaroa might sit beside the Greek Poseidon in the same mythology book. These connections are happening in real time, as cultures learn from one another, as we begin to realize that the myths of the world are not isolated stories, but rather, part of a much larger human conversation. In many ways, this is the beauty of mythology. It is a universal language that speaks to us all. These myths are not bound by geography or time, they are about something deeper, something eternal that connects us as human beings. No matter where we come from, we all have a need to understand our world and our place within it. We all seek answers to the same questions: where did we come from? What is our purpose? What happens when we die? These myths, these creatures, these gods, they are our answers. They are our way of making sense of the chaos, of finding meaning in the mysteries of the world. And as the world continues to change, as new stories are told and new myths are born, we will continue to find that these connections, these universal threads that link us all, remain as powerful as ever. The myths of Oceania, of Australia, and of every corner of the globe will continue to speak to us, not just as relics of the past, but as living, breathing stories that shape our present and guide us into the future. They are more than just tales, they are the heartbeat of humanity, speaking a language we all understand, if only we choose to listen.